Okay. All right. Okay. Everything looks good. All right. Um, for the people watching this not live, I have put the chat into the window. Hopefully you can see it. I need to get better about doing chat overlays. I didn't have the time to mess with it. Uh, but hopefully this is good enough for now. Just kind of waiting for people to show up if they're going to. Um, but today we are going to talk about the black cards. Yesterday we talked about the blue and the white cards. And yeah, that's pretty much it, right? Okay. All right. So the back end of the stream seems to have got itself all fixed and worked out. You'll have to forgive the unprofessionalism. I'm still pretty new to this whole thing. Set that up. Okay. I accidentally left ads on. I'm trying not to do that. Anyway, so today we're talking about well, all the black cards, but we're starting with Animate Dead, which is the first of the black cards that we'll talk about in revised, and it's kind of a banger. Animate Dead is an enchant dead creature, or enchant aura these days, that costs 1 and a black mana, and any creature in any graveyard comes into play on your side with -1 to its original power. At end of game, or if this enchantment is discarded without removing target creature from play, target creature is returned to its owner's graveyard. Target creature may be killed as normal. The wording on this card is pretty funny because this card really enhances just how like fast and loose they were going when they first started. And because of the complicated nature of a card like this, as far as the game mechanics work, this is a card that's actually undergone some changes throughout the years. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, it is much better than Raised Dead. We'll talk about Raised Dead too when we get there. How you doing today, Darth? Hope you had a good night. I'm gonna just quick read the Oracle text on this because it is a little bit different. Enchant creature card in a graveyard. When this aura enters, if it's on the battlefield, it loses enchant creature card in a graveyard and gains enchant creature put onto the battlefield with this aura. Return enchanted creature card to the battlefield under your control and attach this aura to it. When this aura leaves the battlefield, that creature's controller sacrifices it. Enchanted creature gets -1/-0. So that's really complicated because when the oh, hey, thanks, Dan. That means a lot. I really can't complain. The amount of reception and conversation I've gotten from people has been great. Um, it would be nice though, for sure. Um, yeah, good to hear, Darth. Good to hear. Anyway, where was I? Oh, right. So what's interesting about this card is that originally they just said enchant dead creature on it, right? So that you can enchant a creature, put it onto the field, and it was pretty simple. But the issue is because of when they when they comprehensive when they made the comprehensive rules, I'll just try to say it that way. Um, this kind of didn't work anymore because if you enchant a creature that's in a graveyard with it, well, then the creature's not in the graveyard, and the rules don't play nice with a card like this. Necromancy is another one that's really fucking confusing for this, for what is effectively just mechanical quirks, because the concept of the card itself is pretty simple, honestly. It's just you play this, you put a creature card from your graveyard attached to this, and bada bing, bada boom. You have an animated dead creature. Um, but the game was in its infancy when this card came out. Obviously, it came out in alpha, and the things have changed a little bit. Um, I guess that's all I have to say on the mechanics of the card. For a like power, this card is really good. Uh, it's obviously outclassed by like Reanimate. Yeah, yeah, Tom. It is an all-timer card. Super great. This is also super funny with World Gorger Dragon. This Dance of the Dead and Necromancy, I believe, are the three that can create an infinite loop and make you infinite mana. It's one of the most dangerous combos that you can do because if anything, because there's two fail states for that combo. One, if something happens to another target card and you can't exit the loop, the game just glitches out and goes into what's called an infinite loop, and the game just shuts down because no more game states can happen, and so the game would continue in that infinite loop forever, and so it's just a game loss or draw, I believe. And the other funny state is if something gets blown, if the creature that it's targeting gets blown up at the right moment, then you just lose all of your permanents. Neither one of those situations is good for you, which is pretty funny. But Animate Dead is really strong. It's a really good card. I love this card. I think it's fantastic. It's just, it feels like a Magic card, right? It's doing the whole necromancy thing, animating dead. It's just overall very cool and pretty powerful card, even back in the day, right? Like 2 mana to get any creature back. This scales better as the creatures get better, but even back in the day, you could cheat stuff with this. Oh, hey, War Club. Nice to see you here. It's obviously Animate Dead is a great card to start talking about today. It's such an awesome card. I love this card. The art was done by Anson Maddox. I'm a huge Maddox fan. This art is no different. It's super fantastic. The juxtaposition of the coloring is really intense, which is pretty cool, in my opinion. I think that's all I really have to say about Animate Dead. Anyone else have anything they want to add about Animate Dead? Any fun stories with it? It is such a cool card. Um, well, I suppose there isn't too much more to say about it though. So let's talk about Bad Moon, shall we? Bad Moon. So Bad Moon is the opposite of Crusade, the band card we talked about in White and Revised. This card's pretty simple. It's just an enchantment that costs 1 and a black, and all black creatures in play gain +1/+1. It is kind of interesting to me that Bad Moon was 1 and a black, whereas Crusade was 2 white, because Bad Moon is easier to cast. Yeah, yeah, Maddox did move away from. It's really interesting too. On a side note, it's really interesting to, as you go through the cards, see how the artists either improved or just changed and approached their art different through the context of drawing art for what was rapidly becoming one of the most popular games of the century. It's really interesting. Um, Anyways, Bad Moon. Bad Moon's a simple card, right? All your black or not just yours. All black creatures in play get +1/+1. Um, for 1 and a black mana. This was a very popular card back in the day. A lot of people like stuff like this. It's not what you would consider super strong these days, but it's certainly not weak. Um, it is pretty simple though. I don't know that I have too much to say about it. Um, I wish I knew the design reasoning for why this got a generic and a black, whereas Crusade got 2 white mana. Because this one is technically easier to cast. It also doesn't really matter because likely you're playing more monocolor if you are playing a card like this. Um, Obviously not always the case, but that's, I think, the thing about these two cards that's always confused me the most. Beyond that, there isn't too much to say about this. This is a very casual kitchen table friendly kind of card where it's like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna, cast a bunch of black creatures. I'm gonna play my Bad Moon and they're all gonna be bigger and deal more damage. Um, yeah. Excuse me, I hope that didn't peak. Gotta wonder what made Mirrors go, I gotta put a skull in that moon. Well, obviously, right? You gotta show that the moon is bad, right? Uh, but Darth makes a good point. We can move to the art. Jesper Mirfors did the art for this. All of this art was, or all of the revised cards that were in ABU, all of the art was done really early on. Um, and the other cards that we'll see were also done pretty early on, but this card is an OG, one from Alpha. And at the time, Jesper Mirfors was the art director. So he kind of ran the whole art thing, which is interesting. The art on this is pretty good. It's not like one of the best pieces done by any means, but it's very good. I really like it. The face in the moon is pretty funny to me. Um, and the framing of the trees is kind of cute. The clouds are really done too. Overall, the art is pretty nice, in my opinion, but Bad Moon itself is a simple card. I've probably dragged my feet on this one too long, so we'll skedaddle. To Black Knight. Alright, so Black Knight is kind of the mirror opposition of White Knight. Obviously, they are basically the same card, except Black Knight costs 2 black mana instead of 2 white, and it has protection from white instead of protection from black. Um, Both of these cards are very, very good. I would say Black Knight is probably better, especially in the confines of revised, specifically because Black Knight um has protection from swords to plowshare, which is really huge. But while White Knight has protection from terror, Black Knight technically does too because terror can't hit black or artifact creatures. So the two best removal spells in the card pool, Black Knight is immune to both of them, whereas White Knight is just immune to the black one. It's kind of interesting that it shook out that way. Um, but yeah, so Black Knight's a little bit better, arguably. I don't know that that necessarily matters too much, but it is worth considering. Um, Otherwise, Black Knight and White Knight are surprisingly good for the time. So they have a casting cost of 2. Now it is 2 color pips, which is harder to cast than a color pip and a generic, right? But they are 2/2 with 2 abilities. Protection from white, which is not entirely an evasive ability, but sort of an evasive ability, and First Strike, which First Strike means you deal your damage before they do. So if you and another 2/2 attack, you would deal your damage. The game would see that they got killed by that damage, and then they would never have a chance to deal their damage. So it takes cards that you would normally trade with, and you just win. First Strike is very, very good in certain situations. Um, Black Knight and White Knight are like really, really good. Um, just from like a mechanical standpoint, as far as what abilities and power cards were given. Black Knight and White Knight have a lot, which is kind of interesting. Um, the art was done by Jeff A. Menges, and the art's fantastic. I like the Black Knight art a lot. I like the White Knight art too. I mean, I like all of the art. Let's be real, but this one is fun to look at too. The shield is really cool, and I like that it's kind of wintry and cold, very gloomy, right? Very gloomy vibe. Black Knight's a great card. If you're playing a revised draft or anything like that, you do have to be careful because 2 black is hard to cast if you're trying to go multicolor, but if you can cast a card like this, it's definitely worth it to grab. And it's an uncommon, so you are likely to see it. Yeah, exactly. It is insane creature value for the time, even with the double pip cost. Um, yeah, yeah. I don't really have anything else to say about it, right? Like it's pretty obvious that this card is good if you look at like if you know the card pool at the time. These days it looks pretty basic, but they've been power creeping creatures a lot for a long time. Um, yeah, I think that's it. All I have to say on Black Knight. So we'll check out Bog Wraith because this one is pretty interesting. All right, Bog Wraith. This is as classic comes. Bog Wraith is a 3/3 that costs 3 and a black mana. It is a and it has Swamp Walk. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, so it's a 3/3 for 4 mana with Swamp Walk. What's interesting about Swamp Walk is that there's a card we will talk about called Evil Presence, which turns a land into a swamp. That's very, very good with Swamp Walk creatures because, oh, sorry. I hope none of my little bit of burping is coming through. Um, Swamp Walk just means that if they have a swamp, you can't be blocked. And so combining Bog Wraith with stuff like Evil Presence is good, right? Because it just gives you a 3/3 unblockable creature. That being said, it is a 3/3 for 4 mana with an ability that you could kind of argue is an evasion ability, sort of, given the certain if the stars align, right? Otherwise, it Swanbuck does nothing if the right cards aren't in play or you're with the right opponent. Bog Wraith is one of those cards that's not particularly good, but it is really interesting, and there's definitely situations where it can be good. Um, but it is definitely like on the lower end of creatures. The art is just really fucking cool though, right? This was done by Jeff A. Menges, and I don't know, this just feels like classic spooky, right? Like I look at this and I get visions of like Sleepy Hollow and the dumb stuff that the dumb spooky stuff from when I was a kid. Uh, I really like the art. I think the art's well done. Also, the detailing on that stonework in the background is kind of surprisingly insane. Dude did not have to put that much effort into that, but I'm glad he did. It's a fun card to look at. Um, yeah, shit, I don't know. But I like Bog Wraith. I think it's really cool. It's obviously not a super strong card, but it is pretty interesting. They're it's not so complicated that we can really talk about any fun combos beyond doing the evil presence thing. Kind of funny how Black had so many more traditional fantasy art pieces than White in Revised. Yeah, that is kind of funny. Um, I wonder if that was intentional. I have no idea. on the intentionality of that. I do know that with like most of this art was done for Alpha, right? And the original how they originally did the art is that Jesper would call up one of the artists on the phone and he would give them a list of card names. He would just start listing off card names. And when they got to a card name that was interesting to the artist, they'd be like, "Yeah, I could draw that piece. I have an idea in my head for what that would look like." I don't even think they had stuff like flavor text and stuff figured out. So especially with like early Magic, you'll see like there's sometimes kind of um what do you call it? Kind of a push and pull between like the flavor of what the card is doing and the art, and stuff like that was just kind of miscommunications in the early day. But it is definitely interesting that Black seems to have more of the traditional fantasy pieces, but that just might be how the how the cookie crumbled, right? It's hard to say. Um, I do like looking at this art though. I think this piece is great. I don't really have anything else to say about Bogwraith though. We'll move on and talk about which is one of the strongest cards in Magic of all time. Contract from Below. Uh, so Contract from Below has been done kind of dirty because it is almost never included in the conversation of like what is the strongest card. Yeah, that's a good point, Darth. That's probably correct. Yeah. At the time, most of it was all just inspiration off of D&D and similar things, right? So they kind of just went with what they had. Yeah, I don't even know if it is an opinion. I think it's just objectively the best Magic card. I mean, there's some, because like what argument is there to be like that it's not? Because Ancestral Recall draws you like less than half of the cards this draws you, for the same amount of mana. You could argue that, Ancestral Recall is in blue, which is like a better color, but it's not that much better. Black is pretty much, especially back in the day, is, it doesn't have Time Walk and Time Twister, but it has Contract from Below and Demonic Tutor. Contract is insane. Thanks for stopping by. It's all right. The stream will be up if you do want to catch it later. I appreciate you stopping by and saying something, man. Take it easy. Have a good day. Hopefully work doesn't go too shit for you. I'm welcome to get you. Yeah, it definitely can, especially if you play it too early. But Contract from Below, I think this is the strongest card. It draws you 7 cards. Yeah, you have to ante an additional card. Who cares? It's You could make an argument that Black Lotus is maybe stronger, but I don't think so, because this can draw you 3 or 4 Black Lotuses, right? Black Lotus can never get you a Contract from Below. It can get you 3 mana, but technically Contract from Below could get you like 20 mana, right? If you draw 3 Dark Rituals and 4 Black Lotus, and I mean, obviously you wouldn't have anything to do with all that mana unless you drew something else. But the point is I don't even think there's much of a discussion about it. I do think that Contract from Below is just the strongest card that has ever been printed. Nobody ever talks about it or really knows that though, because it's an anti card, so it's illegal to play almost anywhere, especially these days. Um, but drawing 7 cards and anteing one, so 8 cards, digging 8 cards deep in your deck for 1 mana is just insane. Um, from a flavor and well, maybe not lore, but from a flavor aspect, I really like this card. I think it does a great job of like I liked when Black was kind of deal with the devil kind of stuff. Like you can get advantages, but it is gonna cost you something potentially. Um, and I think a card where you have to ante up a card and then you get a whole new hand is a pretty good Simulacrum, maybe, for like the actual deal with the devil kind of trope, right? It's an insane card. Um, yeah. It's also like way better than Wheel of Fortune and Time Twister for not just because it costs a third of the mana, but also it's just you. Your opponent doesn't draw anything. Sorry. Your opponent doesn't draw anything off of this, so you can just gas and gas. Yeah, yeah. You just drew seven cards off of one mana. The ante does barely matter. Um, I relied on this card a lot during my playthrough of Chandelar, and for good reason. It very rarely was a bad decision to cast this. Um, yeah, absolute insane. It's wild this card never gets talked about. I mean, I guess it makes sense, right? You can pick up a revised version of this card for $4. So like the strongest card in Magic, hashtag arguably, is like $4 because it's an anti card. People don't want to play with anti, which I agree with. Losing your cards for a game is kind of rough, but yeah, it's just kind of interesting how it all shook out, right? Like, to be fair, there are a lot more copies of this card than, like, say, Black Lotus and Ancestral Recall. It's really funny they printed this in revised. It's weird that this made it a little bit further than the, like, I don't know if they just did not see this as a super strong card, or even back then they figured out most people don't play for anti and who gives a shit. So it would be really interesting to be a fly on the wall of the room where they discussed what cards are getting axed and what cards are staying. Because I don't really understand the logic of like keeping this but cutting Time Twister. Um, yeah. The art was done by Douglas Schuler. Just see how people would react. Oh yeah, by the way, we're playing for anti. uh, how would people react? I would bet you there would be some level of curiosity and a lot of outrage. Um, so that would be a pretty unique situation for someone to find themselves in. The art was done by Douglas Schuler on contract from below, and I really like the art on this. I think it's pretty fantastic. Um, I do think it's really funny that it says here in big letters, I hereby agree to all stipulations as discussed above, but there's like 3 inches, maybe 4 inches of paper scrolled up there, and like there's not more than like 2 lines of text on that. So like, what could the stipulations possibly be? Uh, the art's funny, but the card's fantastic. Like I said, my personal opinion that it is the strongest card in Magic, and it's kind of not close. But let's move on to a less interesting card, but not a completely uninteresting card. Good old Cursed Land. Now, so if one mana draws you eight cards and makes you ante a card, 4 mana's got to be really good, right? So this is an enchant land. You enchant it onto a land, and Cursed Land does 1 damage to target land's controller during his or her upkeep. Wow, that is that is way better than drawing 7 cards, personally. Um, that's a 20 turn clock, right? You only gotta you only gotta get to turn like 24, or I guess 22 if you had a Dark Ritual. Yeah, Land kind of sucks. I don't really have too much to say about this. I've never played with or against this card, other than like maybe it's popped up in Chandelar once or twice, and I was like, oh, thank God he used his mana on this instead of something real. Um, yeah, like I don't know. Uh, well, I guess I could say Curse Land is kind of interesting because I think it was in one of the Ravnica sets. There was I believe, 4 mana enchantment that drained a life from your opponent and gave you 1 life. And I went to a sealed event, and I won a game by draining a person for like 20 turns. Uh, I was like one turn away from winning when he stopped drawing gas, and my removal and Cursed Land just took the game from him. Not Cursed Land, that was a different. I can't remember what spell that was, but Cursed Land kind of reminds me of that, except this is even worse. So I guess I do have some fond memories of effects like this because it's really fucking annoying. I do not think Cursed Land is good. I don't even think that spell was good. I just think I got lucky. Um, the art on this though is fantastic. It almost looks like a picture, like a camera picture. Obviously not quite, but I really really love his blurring techniques, right? So like the further away you get from the perspective, the more blurry everything gets, and just what's right in front of you is in detail. That's really fucking cool in my opinion. Um, and the coloring is just great too. Very like kind of dusk, kind of like probably like November, a little chilly. It's very cool. I like the art a lot. The card sucks, but uh Jesper Mirfors drew this and I'm a big fan of his work. Um but yeah, the card sucks. I don't know that there's any reason for us to talk about this one too much longer. Unless anyone has any exciting stories about Cursed Land, let me know. I'm gonna go with probably not though. Dark Ritual. Dark Ritual. It's really weird how long they kept printing this card. It is very interesting that they thought that this card was fair and balanced for as long as they did. Uh, I love this card. Dark Ritual is interesting. It's part of the boon cycle, right? The whole this is what the color does. And Dark Ritual kind of is the most head scratchy of them because these days black um doesn't really get fast mana. Well, I mean, for the most part, no colors get fast mana anymore, other than like land ramp for commander. Um, but Dark Ritual is probably the boon cycle card that has, I don't want to say it age bad because the card's still fucking insane. But it just doesn't really vibe with the current black color pie. Um, in my opinion, the king of all instants. JM is the bomb. I don't know that I know what you mean. JM is the bomb. Um, anyway, while that's getting sorted out. Dark Ritual. You pay black mana to get 3 black mana. It's just like a slightly worse black or slightly worse Black Lotus if you are in mono black. Uh, this card alone. Oh, Jesper Mirfors. Yes, yes, yes. All right, that makes sense. Yeah, I agree. Jesper's work is great. Um, Also, the King of All Instants, Dark Ritual, interestingly enough, as I think the only card that has been printed. Um, the card, yeah, I love the old frames so much, um, a lot actually. It's one of my favorite parts about Magic. I think it was not a good idea to update the frame. Well, my personal opinion. A lot of other people would disagree. Uh, what was oh yeah, Dark Ritual. So Dark Ritual is like the only card that has been printed with 3 different um text lines in its type line. Type line. That's the part of the card that's called. So these days it's an instant. When the game first came out, it was an interrupt because it's a mana source. And then when they did the was it the 6th edition rules change? somewhere in there they changed it to a mana source. So you can find copies of Dark Ritual that say interrupt, copies of Dark Ritual that say mana source, and copies of Dark Ritual that say instant, which is pretty funny. There's no other card that has all three of those on them. There's plenty of other cards that say both interrupt and instant, but most of those are not mana sources. So Dark Ritual has been errated to have three different type lines, which is pretty interesting. The art for Dark Ritual was done by Sandra Everingham, and I really like this art. I think it's fantastic. Very spooky shit. Beyond that, Dark Ritual is just insane. It's a really busted card. Um, really good with Hypnotic Spectre. Um, yeah. I guess I don't have too much else to say about it, but Dark Ritual, very good. Very good card. Um, yeah. And let's talk about Dark Pack. All right. So, Dark Pack is another anti card. And this one is particularly interesting. Well, I guess I would say Contract from Below is particularly interesting because off the top of my head, it is the only anti card that is good, and also it is the best Magic card of all time, probably. Dark Pack is like most anti cards where they kind of just cause me to scratch my head about it. Uh, I'll read what it does. So Dark Pack costs 3 black mana. That's already a pretty tall ask. Swap top card of your library with either card of the ante. This swap is permanent. You must have a card in your library to cast this spell. Remove this card from your deck before playing if you are not playing for ante. And then the Oracle text for this is remove Dark Pack from your deck before playing if you're not playing for ante. You own target card in the ante. Exchange that card with the top card of your library. So this isn't necessarily super terrible per se. 3 mana to swap this with an anti card is, well, the value of that depends on the card, right? So like if they have, say, like an Ancestral Recall or a Black Lotus or something you really want, that's really expensive, this has some value. But the value that this card creates is not in-game value. There are a few cards, I suppose, that you would want to pay 3 black mana to gain access to like help you win, but for the most part, you are just paying 3 mana to exchange this with a card that you have relatively little control over, right? Like you get to pick the card, but whatever gets antied, like you don't really have a say in that. So this is a card that like meta wise, if you like cards have value and you want some cards more than other cards outside of the game, this is kind of interesting and does something, but inside the game it's actually like kind of a detriment to play this, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Um it was illustrated by Quentin Hoover and the art is really good. Um I'm not the hugest Quentin Hoover fan. I don't want to say I don't like, but I like less the cards that have the dark lines and stuff like the similarities between Quentin and Justin Hampton's work are kind of the parts I don't particularly like. Not that those artists are too similar, but they have a couple of similar points. But yeah, Dark Pack, kind of bad, way worse than Contract from Below. Um, 3 mana is a tall ask for something like this. Um, yeah, I guess that's all I really have about the Dark Pack. It's not a great card. The art is really fucking cool though. I do like the art on this, like what he is going for. I'm not a particular huge fan of his stylings, but this one is fantastic. Um, Dude knew how to tell a story with his art. I will say that. Yeah, contract lets you keep the ante anyway. Exactly. Yeah, that's another thing that that is well, maybe not confusing about Dark Pack, but kind of puts it at ends. Because, like, swapping for the ante card, sure, but if you win the game, you get the ante card anyway. So unless if you are doing some sort of really janky combo and you need a specific piece, I could argue, like, you could argue that there's a place for something like that effect, but I mean, well, at least until not by revised, because by revised, Jeweled Bird came out in Arabian Nights, which like just does the thing kind of better. Unless you specifically want your opponent's card, but that doesn't really make sense anyways because you came with your deck built to do a thing, and I if you built your deck to take a card that they had specifically to win, that doesn't make any sense, right? So yeah, so Darth Pack just kind of doesn't make sense in my opinion. But we're on Death Grip, which first thing I want to say about this is the art is really fucking cool. I'm pretty sure that hand is the hand of the Sengir vampire, just based on the art style and stuff like that. You'll see that as we get to that as well. This was illustrated by Anson Maddox. Death Grip is an enchantment that costs 2 black mana, and then you can pay 2 black mana to counter a green spell as it is being cast. This ability is played as an interrupt and does not affect green cards in play. Yeah, I suppose that's true. I mean, you'd just be better off doing that with like Wheel of Fortune or like Bazaar of Baghdad or something, right? Like, I mean, those cards are obviously a little bit harder to get a hold of. So if it's a case of just not having it, yeah, it can be used for something like that. But there are better cards to do that. Yeah, I agree. Death Grip and Life Force, I really love these cards. It's pretty hard to actually justify them, I think. They're pretty funny in Commander, and they are really good color hate, but they I don't want to say they're slow, but they're a little slow. I don't know how you would like make them not slow, um, without making them busted. Color hate is interesting because they tend to make it really powerful, which I agree with, but it's always going to be a little bit niche. Yeah, I suppose that's true, Tristan. Threshold could be a factor. Um, yeah, that's a decent idea. But yeah, Death Grip. I really love this card. I find I do not get enough excuses or time to play this card, which is unfortunate because countering a spell for 2 black is just so fucking cool. Um, I love these cards. I still remember the first time I discovered these cards existed. Because when I was going back through old cards and stuff like that, and I saw this, I was like, what? No, they what? They did that? Yeah, that's definitely one of the problems with Commander, right? Is if you punish them too hard, they come for you. But there's also just um it's hard to no, that's kind of it. This does have advantages in Commander in like that it doesn't cost a card to counter shit, right? So like whereas standard counters Golgari Mirror Match go hard. Yeah, yeah, fucking hell yeah, it would. Um like this does have advantage because it's not card advantage, right? When you use a counter spell, it's a 1-for-1, but Death Grip doesn't have that problem. Uh However, if you drop this on a commander table, people are going to get mad. Well, the green players are going to get mad. Everyone else is going to find it fucking hilarious. I suppose you could like counter some Painter Servant works in a way where you could like just be a complete douche, right? Um, and you could also like magical hack this, I suppose, if you wanted to be a real funny guy. So there are some weird steps and stuff you could do. I don't know. I wish they did cards like this more often. I thought this was a really fun design space for cards to be in. And I also don't think they're that particularly strong. Um, just because of how niche they are and how many like hoops and stuff you have to jump through to make them good. Um, Art was done by Anson Maddox. Forget if I said that or not. I really like the art. Like I said, I'm pretty sure this ties into the Sengir vampire art, which we'll see later. Um, oh yeah, there are a lot more evil things that you can do with Painter. Painter's a great way to like make your friends hate magic and hate you. Um, I think it would be really funny though to like go through the hoops of setting up Painter just to death grip everybody. It's like why you could have just won the game. Um, Still funny to think about though. Um, yeah, I don't have too much else to say. Great enchantment, love it. It's pretty niche. It reads so strong, but I find it's hard to actually get into situations where this is really really good. But I love it every time it happens. Deathlace. Deathlace is an interesting card. Uh, and by interesting, I mean it sucks. So Deathlace is part of the Lace cycle. We've talked about Thought Lace and Fear Lace already. Deathlace does the same thing, except it costs a black mana to turn a card or permanent black. Uh, you could combo this with Life Force to spend 4 green mana and a black mana and 2 cards to counter one thing if you have all the time in the world. Um, but for the most part, the color change cards are interesting and kind of quirky, but they are not good. Um, yeah, I don't really have anything else to say about Deathlace. It's not a great card. It's a type of card that's really fun to cope about and to like just try to make work because it's so just fucking interesting. But it's just not good. Yeah, Darth, Sandra Everingham did fantastic with this art. I think this might be. Oh, I like this and Thought Lace. I don't remember what the Green Lace's art looks like, so we'll have to see that when we get there. But I do think this is one of the better lace arts. Um, but yeah, it's not a good card. Don't play this card. It will be disappointing to you. And we are already to the last anti card. I think. I think. So I know revised pretty well, but I do not know it quite like the back of my hand like I do with ABU. They might have Jewelbird might actually be in revised. So maybe there's more anti cards. In ABU, the only anti cards were the three Contract from Below, Dark Pact, and or Demon Pact, whatever that was, and Demonic Attorney. All three of those are black, which I guess does make sense that anti is leans heavier into black than it does the other colors. Demonic Attorney is really funny. So you can pay 1 and 2 black mana. It's a sorcery. If opponent doesn't concede the game immediately, each player must ante an additional card from the top of his or her library. Remove this card from your deck before playing if you are not playing for ante. So that's pretty funny. And the Oracle text actually just takes that whole concede part out because you can concede at any point. So that line of text actually doesn't change anything or establish any rules. Remove Demonic Attorney from your deck or playing if you are not playing for ante. Each player antes the top card of their library. So they changed what it says, but it still works the same, right? Because you can still respond, you can still concede in response to this, which is kind of interesting. Without that being suggested to you in the text box, it does kind of change the vibe of it a little bit, but it does make sense. Not that any of this matters because nobody plays anti cards. Uh, this one goes hard. Yeah, you mean the art or the effect or you mind elaborating on that a little bit, dude? If you don't mind. I do agree though. I really like the art. I like the idea of the card. I think this one should cost 1 or 2 mana. I'd be okay with 2. 3 seems a little rough for this. Like you made demonic contract from below 1 mana. Why does this one have to be 3? Um, it's just kind of crazy. But all of the anti cards are pretty cheap because nobody plays with them. There's really no demand for them. Which, does make sense, right? Because anti is not a fun way to play. There's a theoretical deck with contract. Okay, yeah, sure. I guess I could see something with that. I would push back on that a little bit because I don't think something like I did something similar. I don't know if you watch many of my videos, but I did a Chandelar video where using Bronze Tablet and like Hercule's Recall and Boomerang, you can um, just keep stealing cards. The thing is doing something like this, you're never going to get more than 1 or 2 until like the opponent playing against you figures out what's going on and just concedes, right? Like so doing something like that means that you have to put all your eggs in the basket of doing that. And so if you're playing with those, either you are playing against somebody that isn't at the same skill level of you and really should not be in that game, or you're playing and or they don't have the cards to be competitive with you, in which case you're just kind of ripping somebody off, and going like pub stomping a newbie and stealing their cards, or they are an equal level player and they're going to see right through that and just concede, or while you're dicking around, they win. Um, but that is true. Like you could, there is a theoretical deck where you could do that. I don't think that ever actually manifests in the real world though. Just because to be playing with these cards, I would presume you have at least enough of a understanding to right like you might get 1 or 2 off of them, but it's just one of those things where like nobody's forcing them to sit there and watch you steal all their cards. I think you'd take a right hook before you took their moxin. um your deck stealing deck was hilarious. Thanks. I thought that was really really funny. That was a lot of fun. Well, it wasn't fun playing it out. It was very very tedious actually playing that out, but I got the idea in my head and I was like, is this possible? And turns out that the Chandelar AI does not concede. It will let you take every fucking permanent in its deck, which I thought was really funny. I'm glad you enjoyed that too. Um, yeah, Demonic Tutor is interesting, or Demonic Attorney is interesting. Yeah, it is interesting that they created a steal your deck pub stomp archetype. I don't know how I don't know how far they thought through because with the early designing, like when they were playtesting these cards and stuff, they just like threw a bunch of random ones into a bag and are like, okay, here are your cards. So I don't know that they even had the concept of archetypes and stuff like that. I think it's just a case of whoops. I don't think they were intending it or even knew that you could do that. Um, but I don't know. I wasn't in the room when they were talking about it, right? So who's to say? Um, it is pretty fucking funny though. Demonic Attorney, was there anything else to say? Mostly we just talked about Anti here, which, it's a good time to do so. Uh, the art is really funny. I really like the art on this. They do kind of have a devil theme. I think that fits really in with the whole concept of anti. I do think that's one thing they did really really well with anti is that they gave it mostly to black and they made some of it really powerful and made it demonic, right? I do think that from like a Ludo narrative standpoint, that's just really really perfect in my opinion. Um, so it's an interesting card. Uh, but a lot of them are. A lot of the black cards are interesting. Even the ones that are not great, which I would argue Demonic Attorney isn't super great. A card that is probably worse, but reads kind of interesting, is Demonic Hordes. Demonic Hordes is a summon demons. It's a 5/5 for 6 mana, and you can tap it to destroy one land. That sounds pretty fucking sweet, right? And then you have to pay 3 black during your upkeep, or the hordes become tapped and you lose a land of your opponent's choice. So, so this is a 5/5 with a tap ability. That costs you 6 mana, and that tap ability destroys a land. And if you do not pay 3 black mana every upkeep, your opponent gets to blow up your best land. This is a this is a very very dangerous card to be playing. Land destruction for the win. Yeah, I agree. I love land destruction. The thing with something like this though, this thing is really fucking dangerous though, because what happens? You play this out, right? So let's say you don't ramp to this. You get your lands out to play this because you can't just like Dark Ritual this out, or you're gonna get fucked when the upkeep pay comes, right? So you get the lands you need. You cast this, and your opponent casts Armageddon. Then what? Um, you will spend the rest of the game with one land because you'll at the start of your upkeep you won't be able to pay that, so this will become tapped. You won't have a land, so that doesn't matter. You play a land, and unless you have a Dark Ritual to like get out of it, you just end up looping yourself and getting fucked. Um, so this card is incredibly dangerous and can backfire in tremendously hilarious ways if the right thing happens. It's stuff like that that makes it kind of not good. The card did get better with time, right? As more support comes out and other things and things that you can do, that's definitely true. And the card is definitely interesting, but it also is, it really speaks to kind of a naivety about card design in the earlier days, right? Obviously, I don't mean any shade. Just the card is a 5/5 with a tap ability. We saw the same thing with Pirate Ship, where it's like, why would you invest this much into such a powerful thing? And then you can choose between attacking and taking and leveraging its power or using its effect, which is also really strong. Um, is terrible to reanimate. Yeah, yeah, it's probably a bad choice to reanimate. Um, I like this card. I really love the text tap to destroy one land. I do think that's great. Um, and I guess maybe they did want some kind of uh pull, right? So they want like it is a 5/5. You can take advantage of that, or you can take advantage of the fact that you can blow up a land. And they kind of didn't want you to, and they kind of wanted you to struggle with that choice. That might be what they were going for when they designed cards like this. And yeah, it that's all right. It it is a questionable card though. This is one of those cards that I struggle with because I read this and I'm like, hell yeah, dude, this is the coolest fucking shit ever. And then it's just kind of bad, which is kind of unfortunate. Like, this would be a fun card to play with. Yeah, it is, but because it kind of pulls away, right? Um, and it's not. I don't know that. Yeah, yeah, for sure. I don't know that it. The problem is it's also not like strong enough in either direction to really justify it. Um, 6 mana to destroy one land over and over again. sure, that can be pretty good, but by that point in the game, it's likely not to matter. I don't know. I really like this card, but I really do not think it is good. I have never like successfully used or seen this card used. But maybe that's just on me for not trying it enough. Uh, I haven't been talking about the flavor text too much on these. But this one is interesting because it has Domina on it, which these days everybody knows Dominaria, which is the plane that most of Magic happens on, right? Like it's the plane that Urza was on, it's the plane that Llanowar is on, it's the all kinds of shit is in Dominaria, right? Um, Domina was originally the word that they used for the multiverse. It meant all planes. And Dominaria came out later as a reference to Domina, and then they stopped using Domina, which is just kind of interesting. I don't really have anything to say about it. It's just kind of neat. Um, yeah. The art on this is just banger though. Uh, another Jesper Mirfors piece that is really good. Um, I guess I don't have anything else to say about that. Yeah, I mean, most people don't know about that. If you're talking about the Dominaria thing, it's not really something that comes up. Um, yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about demonic hordes. Let's check out another really powerful card. Demonic Tutor. Demonic Tutor is a sorcery that costs 1 and a black mana, and you may search your library for one card and take it into your hand. Reshuffle your library afterwards. Busted. Busted. Abandoned Legacy, for good reason. Restricted in Vintage. It's a game changer in Commander. Commander is like the only place you can really play this anymore. You can play it in Canland too, if you're willing to spend 3 points on a card. Um, Demonic Tutor is pretty fucking busted. Oh yeah, it is a classic. Classic card, great card. Um, shit, I guess I don't know what to say about it. It's any card in your deck, right? Whatever card you need, like a card like this is king for combos, and you can demonic tutor for a time twister, and then just you can demonic tutor for a demonic a contract from below. You can demonic tutor for whatever wins you the game. It's the most consistent card. It's powerful. It's strong. It's fun to use. Like like nobody is ever having a bad time when they're casting demonic tutor. You cast this, the room goes quiet, and then everyone's like, "Oh, what's he getting?" Yeah, demonic tutor is fantastic. Another Douglas Schuler piece, and the art on this is classic. I love the demonic tutor art so much. It's also a flavorful card, right? Demonic tutor, another one of those. You're reaching below to the demonic realms to get something super good. Um, it has so much history. Yeah, it does have so much history, right? Like it's an OG from the beginning and still usable, right? Like Alpha actually kind of hit a lot of cards like perfect. Cards like Armageddon, Lightning Bolt, Demonic Tutor. Some of these are like strong and maybe even slightly too strong, but they're not like it's just kind of perfect. Yeah, this one does rule. I would say this one probably is weaker than Black Lotus. I think that kind of argument depends, I think, on like what the rules of the format are and what the card pool is. Because like Demonic Tutor gets a lot better when you're playing like Vintage, where everything is limited to one because your consistency goes down a little bit. But depending on the format rules, Demonic Tutor pretty fucking good. I mean, it's always pretty good, but Black Lotus is really strong too. Um, yeah, I don't know what else to say about Demonic Tutor. It's just generically good, right? Because it's literally an extra copy of every card that you have access to. Um, yeah, it's just fantastic. Uh, I already talked about the art. Yeah, I think that's all there is to say on Demonic Tutor. It's a fantastic card. Kicker for two for any card. Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. And that's pretty strong, obviously. Drain Life. Drain Life is an interesting card. Um, Drain Life is a sorcery that costs one and a black. Well, actually, it costs X one and a black. I don't know why they didn't put the X on the card. It kind of made it confusing for me the first time I read this card, but well, a version of this card without the X anyway. Drain Life does one damage to a single target for each black mana spent in addition to the casting cost. Caster gains one life for each damage inflicted. If you drain life from a creature, you cannot gain more life than the creature's current toughness. So, drain life is kind of the black fireball, right? Often used as a win condition, super good with cards like Dark Ritual and Black Lotus. But a little less versatile because you do specifically need black mana for it to drain something out or to even do damage with it. But this card has been and was a win condition, especially in the early years. It's a good card. I like the card a lot. It's definitely not busted or anything. Um, it's weird that you can kill a player but not a creature. With Drain Life, you can kill a creature with Drain Life. What Drain Life is saying, you can so if you say a dancing scimitar, a 1/5 flyer, if you hit it for 8, you will only drain 5 life. So you can't take more life from a creature than the toughness that it has. But you can kill creatures with this. Spend only black mana on X. Drain life deals X damage to any target. You gain life equal to the damage dealt, but not more life than the player's life total before the damage is dealt, the planeswalker's loyalty before the damage was dealt, or the creature's toughness. Yeah, you can also hit planeswalkers with this. Drain life is in every single one of my black decks. Yeah, it makes sense. It's really good in it's specifically generic black, right? Like if you're mono black, this is just your fireball, but it also can like save you some life. It's a really good card. The art was this art was another one done by Douglas Schuler, and I would say this is a rare miss in my opinion. The art's not terrible, but it's no like Demonic Tutor or any of the other really powerful effects. Um, yeah, yeah, drain life. Yeah, you can kill creatures with it. I would say it is like almost always incorrect to kill a creature with this. You could argue blowing up a planeswalker with this is probably a good idea, but I would say in most situations, unless you have a couple copies of this, and there's obviously some situations where it's the right thing, but very rarely is killing using drain life as removal the correct thing to do. It can be the correct thing to do, but I do think that most of the time you're better off just draining your opponent and winning the game. Um, I guess that's all I really have about Drain Life. So we'll continue on. Hey Rick, glad to see you here. Hope you're having a good day. Uh, yeah, you did. We're actually past a lot of the good cards in black. Not all of them, but we're getting to some of the um more reasonable cards. But if you're interested in checking it out later, you can always come back and watch. The stream will go up and people can watch it afterwards. Uh, and I have set up a rudimentary version of chat onto the screen so that if you're watching the live, you can see what people said. The first couple versions didn't have that, and I didn't think that through. But yeah, Drudge Skeleton is a classic. Drudge Skeleton, I think, is one of the first creatures that got a functional reprint. What was it in Legends? Walking Dead is the card. It's the same card. It's one in a black for a 1/1 that has pay a black for regenerate. Drudge Skeletons is great, at least in the time. It's really fucking annoying to deal with because you can't kill it with damage as long as they have a black up, and it can chump block your shit for days. Very, very frustrating card to deal with. Which is kind of funny because it looks pretty innocuous. Regenerate is one of those things that like it's hard to like conceptualize. At least it was for me, of like how fucking annoying it can be to deal with. Um, and Drudge Skeletons is a great example of that. Otherwise it's a 1/1 for 2, right? So it's not like super powerful. Um, but it is hard to remove. But I guess I don't really have too much else to say about Drudge Skeletons. It's a classic. It's a solid like limited card. It's really fucking annoying if your opponent doesn't have a way of dealing with it. It's almost impossible. Like if they don't have uh a burn spell when you're tapped out or like a Swords to Plowshare or something, this is just fucking brutal to deal with. Chandelure does do a good job of showing how frustrating regeneration is. I have never hated seeing a Drudge Skeleton more than I did when I was playing Chandelure. Um, it was kind of crazy to me just how fucking like cooked you can get by a fucking simple Drudge Skeleton. He, Chandelure made me put some respect on Drudge Skeleton's name. I'll say that. Uh, the art was done by Sandra Everingham, and this one is interesting. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a miss, but what the fuck is up with that horse? I don't. That's that's not what horse skeletons look like, I don't think. But yeah, it's pretty fucking wild. It's a good card. It's not a great card, but super good limited card, super fun, simple card. And overall, honestly, pretty well balanced. Annoying to deal with though. Yeah, I agree. Honestly, really any of their effects could have a place in Magic today. And it's really interesting to me that they like pull away from things that are overly complicated. At least they did for a long time, but now that Commander is really popular, they're kind of leaning back into the, oh, let's make it so fucking complicated no one knows what's going on. Right? Like legendary creatures keep getting stronger with more abilities and making less sense thematically, and from a color pie aspect because they're all just 5 color now. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them, specifically so that they are captivating to play in Commander. Um, but yeah, regeneration also suffered from the rule change because it used to be a lot simpler until like the stack and priority system came in and how you had to play it became different. Um, it's not like insanely complicated, but I can see why they got away from it. Next we have a name that I will not be able to pronounce. El Hajjaj, maybe? I'm not sure exactly how you're supposed to put the emphasis on that. But this is a 1/1 for 1 and 2 black mana, which already seems pretty bad. But you gain 1 life for every point of damage El Hajjaj inflicts. So this is the one of the first creatures that came out where people were like, oh, okay, I can put an unholy strength on this, and now suddenly I am casting a healing salve every turn and a lightning bolt if it goes through. Um, El Hajjaj was a pretty beloved card, especially among the like semi-casual crowd. It's not strong, not even at the time, but it is pretty interesting. And cards like this were really desired because, especially early on, people saw life totals as like sanctuary, right? Like number go up, number be bigger. It these days, most good players will tell you that life is a resource. It doesn't really particularly matter. Some damage you can take, and that's for the best. And the only point that matters is the last one, right? Um, so there was a bit of a different vibe back then. Prime target for hatred. Yeah, it is a good target for hatred. Or Howl from Beyond. Um, and yeah, that's another great point, Rick, is cards like this did make you think about combos, right? This is a very clear example of two cards being worth more than the sum of their parts, right? And making you think, how do these specific cards interact in a way that brings me more advantage than I would get with the two cards separately. El Hajjaj is phenomenal for highlighting that. Like was a fantastic card design. It's not strong, even at the time. It's not strong, but it is interesting, and it makes you think about the game in a way that is exciting and inspires creativity. Right? I love this card. I rarely play it because it's not good, but it is from a historical standpoint. Cards like this are really worth like some level of respect. Um, fucking fly. The art was done by Damon Willick, and the art is pretty cool. Yeah, that was a thing on Yu-Gi-Oh as well. People wouldn't play strong cards because of life requirements. Yeah, like Solemn Judgment, I think was a big one for a while. Uh Basically was effectively counter anything, but pay half your life points, if I remember the card effect well. That card is well, it's maybe not strong. I don't keep up with modern day Yu-Gi-Oh, and Yu-Gi-Oh has gotten really fast and powerful, but for a time at least, that card was very powerful. But it took a while for people to figure it out. Um, people don't like people have a negative reaction to paying costs, which makes sense. Um, El Hajjaj. I think that's really all I have to say about it. It's a fun card. Erg Raiders. Oh, does Solemn still see play in sideboards? Yeah, I guess I'm not terribly surprised by that. It is a trap though. Traps are pretty slow. Is it something that you just put in when you go second, or do you put it in when you go first? How like, huh? I guess it makes sense. As a sideboard, maybe there are some strategies that are slower, but that's interesting that it still sees play. I thought most traps didn't really see play anymore. Um, yeah, I don't follow Yu-Gi-Oh too much. Urg Raiders. Urg Raiders is a pretty interesting card. This is another one I forgot to mention with like El Hajjaj. That was originally in Arabian Nights. So that was reprinted out of Arabian Nights, and Urg Raiders is the same. Originally appeared in Arabian Nights. This is a 2/3 creature that costs 1 and a black, and if you do not attack with Raiders, they do 2 damage to you at end of turn. Raiders do no damage to you the turn in which they are summoned. Yeah, you play when you okay. Yeah, I guess that makes sense, right? Set up your board and then slap it down and then fuck them. Yeah, that's what a card. I love cards that tell people what to eat and where to put it. Urg Raiders is one of the best aggro creatures of its time, for sure, especially low cost. Um, this is a Arabian Nights when it came out really leaned heavily into the this card is above rate, but it does something bad to you kind of style. Alpha had that to some degree, but Arabian Nights really leaned into it with stuff like Juzam Jin, Urnam Jin, and Serendib Ifrit, and all of that stuff. And Urg Raiders is really solid. As far as 2 drops go, it's pretty aggressive. There is some stuff that's a little better, but this was really, really powerful at the time, for sure. Another piece that was done by Damon Willick. And I like this art. Very, very cool. I guess I don't really have anything else to say about Urg Raiders. Um, yeah, no. So I guess let's move on to Evil Presence. Honestly, great design, especially considering how quickly boards can become stale in the first couple of sets. Yeah, that was a major problem with like the early game is that, and you can even see that in the design that they kind of had an understanding of that. I don't know if it was intuitive or just based off of experience that the game is very defensive heavy, especially in the early sets, right? So like most of the keywords try to fix that. You have stuff like first strike and flying, which are like just trying to encourage the game to like do something. Because if both sides sit at parity with blockers, you quickly get to a point where neither player, like if you attack, you get blown out and you lose. So it without a lot of the like keywords and designs, it would be even worse. But it was still pretty bad. Banding banding kind of exasperates the situation more than I think they intended it to. But besides banding, most of the other um, keywords are kind of designed to encourage attacking. Um, and Urg Raiders goes about that a different way, but it's really interesting. Being a 2/3 is cool too, especially at 2 mana, because you can pretty much always swing in without like unless they have two like a 1/2 and a 2/1. By turn 2, it's pretty hard for them to have something that can kill a 2/3, right? So it is a really good, interesting, and aggressive card. Evil Presence. Evil Presence, I think, is a card that's underrated, even today. Yeah, for sure. Um, Evil Presence is something that I think should maybe even see a little bit more play in old school, depending on like what your meta is. But this card, one, the most obvious thing to do with it is turn one of their lands into a swamp so that your swamp walkers can attack. And that's kind of good. But this is also kind of like a budget sinkhole. Both in like accessibility, like a revised version of this is like 25 cents, so it's not hard to get your hand on these, but also it's a single mana to turn their Library of Alexandria into a swamp, or turn their City of Brass into a swamp. Like, if they are like a lot of colors and their lands are pretty greedy, or if they like, obviously it's pretty rare to see these in the actual like card game world, but like against a Mishra Workshop deck, Evil Presence is brutal as fuck. Um, Bazaar of Baghdad. If there's a deck making use of that, Evil Presence just hits that in the dick. Maze of Ith is pretty accessible. That you see all the time in old school. Evil Presence shuts that shit right the fuck down. His playstyle shifted to blue. Yeah, yeah, that's true. Um, Merfolks like to do this. Yeah, yeah, because Merfolks have Island Walk and some of their shit has like Island Home and stuff like that. Um, Especially yeah nowadays. Yeah, didn't they just release not that long ago the basically Magus of the Moon, but it's a Merfolk and for blue. That card is pretty interesting. Uh, but the point is Evil Presence is a card that you should consider. It's pretty valuable. Um, you can also in a pinch use it for color fixing if you like are playing cards that have like a lot of swamps and you don't. But that is kind of a back foot, not what you want to be doing with this card. Uh, this card also kind of does nothing if you're not playing against really strong busted swamp or busted lands. Um, I mean the whole swamp walk thing, Harbinger of Tides. Yeah, thank you. That's right. Yeah, yeah. I like that card. I think that card's interesting. Um, yeah. Anyways, Evil Presence. So this is the higher the power level, the better this is. I think is what I'm trying to say here. Um, and the art was done by Sandra Everingham. It's pretty good. It's pretty interesting art. I like this card. I think this card is actually pretty good. But that's kind of all I have to say on it. Anyone have any opinions on Evil Presence? All right, doesn't appear to be. It's all right. Let's move on to classic art. This card, I swear I saw this card in every box of bulk I ever looked at. Yeah, that good point, his Quitter. Good point on the art. Can't believe they couldn't come up with flavor text for Evil Presence. Yeah, um, maybe they just got bored. Um, no idea on that. Fear is an interesting card. This card is actually a mechanic now. Um, and it's pretty good. For 2 black mana, you enchant a creature, and target creature cannot be blocked by any creatures except for black creatures and artifact creatures. And the idea here is that artifacts are machines, so they don't go into the swamp. Funny. Um, yeah, so the idea with fear, right, is that like the black creatures are all spooky, scary skeletons. So they're not afraid of stuff, and artifact creatures are machines, so they are not afraid of stuff. This is a very like narratively interesting card. Very, very flavorful. And it's also pretty powerful, right? If your opponent is not playing black creatures or artifact creatures, this is just your creature's unblockable. Um, Fear for at least a while um, was a keyword. I don't know if that's one of the keywords they stopped using. Um, Robots don't get scared. Exactly, exactly. That's the idea. But for a while, this was a keyword. Like it appeared on some cards that said, fear." That means this creature can't be blocked by artifact or can't be blocked by any creatures that are not black or artifacts. Um, it's pretty good. It's not great. Like, this isn't a high-end, super competitive card, but for casual kitchen table, like it piles of cards decks, this is pretty hard to deal with. Um, and the art is hilarious. The art is absolutely the funniest shit ever. Mark Poole did this piece, and I really like it. It became Intimidate. Yeah, yeah. Um, also Shadow is kind of similar, right? Like they messed around with this style of mechanic, and I think made a bunch. Well, not a bunch, but a few different keywords. I think Shadow was inspired by this too. Um, yeah, and then discontinued. Um, yeah, they keep messing with stuff. I don't know if I have anything else to say. Oh, it is still a keyword? Okay, that's good. Raiders, yeah, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Exactly. Now that scene's playing in my head. That's a good way of putting it. Papa. Yeah, I don't think I really have anything else to say about it. It's like it's pretty solid, right? If you're playing against a non-black, non-artifact deck, this is just unblockable for two black, which can be pretty damn good. Um, yeah. Yeah, I guess that's all I got for fear. Let's uh let's keep on keeping on. Frozen Shade is interesting. Frozen Shade is a 0/1 for 2 and a black mana, and you can pay a black mana to give this creature +1/+1 until end of turn. This card is not particularly strong, but this was pretty beloved back in the day because it kind of reads pretty strong. And also the way they worded it and the way they worded it initially, it some people thought that the black is just a +1/+1 counter. So you would keep that. So um it wasn't and like a lot of people interpreted this not as end of turn, but you play a frozen shade, you put 3 black into it to give it +3/+3, and then you go to your next turn and it kept that +3/+3. That's not how this card works. If it was, the card would be better. Um, uh, hey, yeah, good job bringing up the it doesn't fly. That's another thing that's really interesting about this card is it this is one of those the art and the mechanics kind of don't mesh well because this card absolutely looks like it should be flying, right? And it's not even so strong that it doesn't kind of need the flying. Like +1/+1 for a black is pretty good. Uh, but it is a 0/1 for 3 mana. I think it could handle the flying and still be pretty fair. Um, but yeah, I guess that's really all I have to say about Frozen Shade. It's an interesting card. It's probably one of the weaker ones, in my opinion. Um, but it is really cool. I guess they fixed that with Killer Bees. Yeah, yeah, Killer Bees is another really fun card. Killer Bees is it's really interesting that that's a green card, but I like Killer Bees. Um, the art for Frozen Shade, illustrated by Douglas Schuler. I did not mention that. Um, Douglas Schuler is great with art. This is the start of the shade effect. Yeah, for sure. Silencio. Hungry Mist will always be my number one. Why doesn't this have flying card even above Whippoorwill? Above Whippoorwill, but it's a bird, man. There's a few cards that there's like why doesn't this have flying? Yeah, yeah, they did make lots of shades later with this effect. Um, Frozen Shade is the OG for sure. Um, I think that's all I have to say on this though. So let's move on. And I am gonna step away for a minute to refresh my coffee. So everybody, go ahead and take a minute to appreciate Gloom in all its glory. I will be right back. Okay. What? Oh, yeah. What are they gonna do? Disenchant it for 5 mana? Yeah. Gloom is pretty fucking brutal. It's really, really funny. Um, this is on the high end of impactful color hate cards. I would say it's like less impactful than something like Red Elemental Blast if you're playing with really good blue cards. But Swords to Plowshare and Disenchant are pretty widely played cards in older card pools. Uh, and this says go fuck yourself. Turn one Dark Ritual into Gloom is pretty rough. Yeah, color specific hate cards are too niche. I agree with that in most instances. I think out of all of them, Gloom and like Red Elemental Blast specifically in the like ABU era are worth sideboarding at least. Um, but the rest of them are pretty bad. Um, like we talked about Death Grip a bit, and I love Death Grip. I think it's a fantastic card as far as like design and stuff, but I always find it difficult to even include and rare that it comes up how I would like it to. Gloom, on the other hand, I think specifically against because it hits two of the best removal spells in the card pool. Um, so I would say there's a way to you could play Gloom and you can play Red Elemental Blast. Beyond that though, I don't think so. I don't think there's any other color hate cards that are. I guess Tsunami. You could probably argue you could get away with Tsunami, blowing up all the islands. That one's pretty good too. Um, but even like Flashfire, blowing up all the planes, I don't know that that's likely to be worth it very often. Um, but that's where all the color hate cards generally ended up was in people's sideboards. Uh, Gloom is pretty brutal. I don't know that I necessarily hate it because the white cards are pretty good, right? Like especially if you're not using ban lists, getting balanced and Armageddon and Swords to Plowshare and Disenchant really does make it hard to push forward with your game plan. Um, so I kind of like stuff like this. But there's also definitely I can definitely see the side that doesn't like color hate. And I would say my biggest issue with it is that it is very niche, right? Like you're not even guaranteed to see um yeah, Boil actually came out later cuz Boil is instant speed. I think there is another red one before Boil. So there's two red hate cards that blow up all islands that cost 4 mana. Boil is an instant, and there's one that came out before it that's a sorcery, but I forget what it's called. But yeah, red probably did need Boil. Was one of my favorite things about early Magic is just how much the colors all kind of hate each other. It's like it's really funny, and I appreciate the one of the kind of design philosophies with old color hate was is a color hate card the can do what the other color boiling sees. Okay, yeah. Um, a, a color hate card can do what that color it's hating on is known for, as long as it's hitting on that specifically, right? Like red elemental blast counters a blue spell, cause fuck you, blue. And I don't know, I just find that really funny. There isn't too much to say about Gloom though. It's pretty brutal. I would say this is one of the few that you can justify as a sideboard card, depending on what your strategy is. I really only play and continue to play Kitchen Magic. See, that's mostly what I play too. I've played with outsiders and stuff some, but I personally prefer Kitchen Table just because you can have more control over what your meta is. Um, and yes, color hate cards are super powerful if you like you know before what you're playing against. Generally in our kitchen table games, we still use sideboards and we try to keep color hate out of, like, we want the games to be fair, right? Um but yeah, that's kind of the real problem with color hate is it's either really good or it's not, right? There's no in between like there are from for a lot of other cards. It's either this is gonna work and you're fucked, or it doesn't do anything and it's a dead card. Um, yeah, color hate is interesting. I I like it from a design idea, and I like the idea of it. A lot of it is poorly executed. But back to Gloom, the art for this is really, really phenomenal. Dan Frazier did a great job on this because this dude just looks like he is having a day. Like he is not, he's not having the worst day of his life. He's not stressed out. He or not super stressed out. He's not like in pain. He is just depressed. He is just gloomy. He is just like that face says it all. The face on this art is fantastic for what this whole card is trying to convey. I think it does a fantastic job of getting that across. Um, but yeah, I think that's really all I have to say about Gloom. Gloom's pretty interesting. It can certainly be brutal in the right context, though. Yeah, yeah. I try with Kitchen Table. It's really hard to um because you want to avoid building decks that are like specifically counters to other decks, right? Because the point is to have a good game with your friends, right? Like winning is fun, of course, but it's not win at all cost. Um, there are like different ways to go around it, but it is definitely something you have to be mindful of when you're playing Kitchen Table. I agree. Yeah, Kitchen Table Draft is a fun way to do it. Um, I like doing shuffling up random piles. I think that's fun. But we also have like decks built, kind of our own local meta, specifically kitchen table meta, right? Um, where all the sideboards are crafted to like deal with the decks that they will see, but the decks themselves focus more on their game plan than fucking up each other. Uh, but it is a hard thing to set up, especially when everyone's just playing with some random cards. Um, Cards that are really strong or cards like color hate, you really have to like put more effort into what your meta is than just, hey, I want to play with these cards. And if you don't want to do that, it's best just to avoid stuff like that, I think. uh, Howl from Beyond is very, very good. Maybe not by today's standards, but this card shows up in my local playing a lot. um Howl from Beyond is really, really fun. In fact, I had a draft game where I won with a Howl from Beyond on a Birds to Paradise that was berserked, and that was the highlight of my evening. Yeah, Battle Box is another good format for kitchen table. Howl is amazing. Yeah, I really like it. Um, I don't know that I would call it excellent by today's standards, but I just because I don't like see it or play newer formats often enough to have a real have my thumb on the pulse, right? But I love Howl. Howl is a fantastic card. It's one of the most winningest of cards in my personal meta, as far as just it gets it's a fantastic combat trick, right? It's maybe not the most efficient combat trick, but it's a fantastic combat trick. I really like Howl from Beyond. And the art is phenomenal too. Markpool is high up there on my list of artists, and this is just great. Howl from Beyond is awesome. Yes, it is multicolor compatible. Um, yeah, yeah. Only I guess we've talked about it a little bit, but not too much, but the difference between one and two of a color pip is actually massive. It doesn't look like much, but if you think about it, it's double the color requirements. Um, and yeah, comparable to fire breathing, this you can splash this a lot easier. Um, yeah, yeah, that's an excellent point. It's one of those cards that never feel unfair, in my opinion. That's a good way of looking at it. I don't know if I've been quite so charitable, getting hollowed from beyond and being like, yeah, this is fair. I might have. I think I've had moments where I'm like, fuck this card and fuck this game, dude. Uh, but it is funny. Um, it's not unfair. The thing about Howl from Beyond is it's never unfair in a way that drags out the game, right? Cards like this, like if you're gonna lose to it, you know pretty much instantly that you have lost to this. Um, and I think that goes a long way for it. But yeah, yeah, Howl from Beyond, fantastic card. I play with this card all the time. I really like this card. But most of the time it feels pretty. Yeah, I don't. I might have been pushing back a little bit, but I don't necessarily disagree with you. Um, I was just kind of making a joke. Howl from Beyond is fantastic. I like the card. Ba, 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 ba. That's really all I have to say about it, I guess. The art, fantastic, good card, great card, fun card, balanced card. If you play with this card, your games will be fun. Ugh. Hypnotic Spectre. This is one of the most fair and balanced cards of all time, and nobody should have an issue with this. Hypnotic Spectre is a 2/2 that costs 1 and 2 black mana, and it has flying, and an opponent damaged by a Spectre must discard a card at random from his or her hand. Ignore this effect if opponent has no cards left in hand. Oh, thank God they mentioned that part. Yeah, hippie, hippie, hippie. I really like Hypnotic Spectre. Hypnotic Spectre is fantastic. This is probably arguably one of the strongest creatures in revised and ABU. This combine this with Dark Ritual, and by turn 2 you can be ripping cards out of their hand. Um, but out of the two of those, I would say Dark Ritual is the problem card, not necessarily the Hypnotic Spectre. It is so weird that this is so above curve. Running Hippie Integrate, that's fantastic. See, it's shit like that, which is why I always ran like Lightning Bolt in my Commander decks. People would always give me shit. They're like, "What the fuck is he? It doesn't scale well in Commander. It only does 3 damage to one thing." It's like, yeah, but like if that thing needs to die, it's I would prefer to have this. The at random part is more punishing than you might think, and yeah, it's also kind of annoying, right? Because that specific part bogs the game down a little bit. It's not too bad. Like we play a lot of Hypnotic Spectre at my kitchen table, and we just use dice. Um, and yeah, so it works out pretty okay. But it is punishing. The random does cause it also like does come up as far as like your when you're like making decisions because like sometimes in some situations you have a card in hand that you could play, but if you play it you're more likely to lose something else that you really need, and you don't really need this card. Like it the random part does add a lot of stress. Every time I play pre-modern, someone dark rituals into hippie. Well, of course they dark ritual into hippie. What are you gonna do about it? or they kept a yeah, yeah, that's it's my favorite part of old school is like, yeah, all right, this hand is gonna work unless you respond to it in any way. Please don't do that. Um, but yeah, Hypnotic Spectre is probably the strongest card creature in revised. There's definitely some argument to be had about that, but it's definitely up there. Um, the fact that this has flying and ditches a card when it hits is absolutely absurd. Like if this didn't have flying and had some other um evasion or ability, it would be like half as good. But the fact that you can just like if your opponent doesn't have a flyer and it's a 2/2, right? So like not only do they need a flyer, but they need a flyer that can either kill a 2/2 or not die to a 2/2. And that is a tall ask. And yeah, it's a little bit balanced by the fact that it has two black mana colors in the pip, right? Like this shouldn't come down till turn three. But like they also printed this with Dark Ritual, right? So like this is a turn one. Yeah, prepare yourself. Now, granted, it does die to Lightning Bolt and Swords to Plowshare and pretty much everything that isn't terror. Uh, but this thing is a strong card. Top 10 best first moves when running black. Yeah, I agree for sure. Hypnotic Spectre is really strong. I like the card. Um, and most people that play old school like it or hate it, depending on if they play it or not. Um, but it's fantastic. And it's a card that hasn't held up necessarily great. This certainly isn't as strong as stuff that's coming out nowadays, but also it's held up better than a lot of stuff. Um, it actually brings me a lot of joy that this is still good enough for pre-modern, which I guess makes sense. It's a really strong card for the time. This was illustrated by Douglas Schuler, and it's fantastic. I really like the art for Hypnotic Spectre. Good old Hippie and Lily, yeah. Just two pals fooling around, having a ball, discarding your ass. Yeah, I think that's really all I have to say about also good for devotion bips. Yeah, 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 that's true. I don't I always forget about devotion because I don't play in any formats where that matters like at all. But that is a good point. Um yeah, fantastic card. I love Hypnotic Spectre. Being able to equip a G-Tate. Holy crap. Fantastic. Oh my god. Standard. Whoa. Oh, that makes sense. I'll have to look into that. Yeah, I don't follow pre-modern anywhere near as much as I should, because every time I hear about it, it brings me such fucking joy. It's probably right up my alley. But that's really all I have to say on Hippie or Hypnotic Spectre. Fantastic card, great art, wonderful. Pauper legal. Is Hippie Pauper legal? Huh. Not okay. It is. It never got shifted to common. Okay. Yeah, it's an uncommon. That'd been crazy if it was Pauper legal. Well, maybe not crazy. Like they do pretty powerful stuff in Pauper. They could probably handle it. I don't know the format well enough to say one way or the other. Thank God, I guess. Maybe Pauper couldn't handle it. Not sure. Okay, maybe Pauper couldn't handle it. You guys would know Pauper better than I do. I like the format, I just never play it. Speaking of things that aren't Pauper legal, be surprised to hear Lord of the Pit was Pauper legal. What about this one? You guys think Pauper could handle Lord of the Pit? Lord of the Pit is a 7/7. Oh my god, he's a big boy. That costs 4 and 3 black mana, so 7 mana. It has flying and trample, and you must sacrifice one of your own creatures during your upkeep, or Lord of the Pit does 7 damage to you. You may still attack with Lord of the Pit, even if you failed to sacrifice a creature. Lord of the Pit may not be sacrificed to itself. Pauper has bolts, but other decks would struggle against it on turn 1. Does Pauper have Dark Ritual? Is that a is Dark Ritual? Dark Ritual is a common, isn't it? Can you play Dark Ritual in Pauper? That's kind of crazy if you can. Lord of the Pit is so classic. Uh, the art for this is fantastic. Banger by Mark Teeden, another one of my favorite artists. Um, this card sucks, but it is so fucking cool. Grizzlebrand's alcoholic grandpa. That's a fantastic way to put it. Yes, Dark Ritual is Pauper Leaguer. Oh, all right. Well, color me shocked. Maybe I will revise my stance on Hippie being okay in Pauper. Yeah, yeah, that would be pretty fucking hard to deal with. Lord of the Pit is a fun card. It's not particularly strong. It's not the yeah. This is the kind of card you see and want to play. A lot of the big creatures in these early things are like just the coolest fucking thing. And then it turns out they're like not that good once you start understanding how the game works. And it's always kind of devastating. Lord of the Pit is one of those cards that suffers from that. Although there's definitely, especially in Kitchen Table, you can make this work. It's is pretty strong if you hit with it and everything goes according to plan. Um, but yeah, I lost to it by Lord being given to me by an opponent and unable to sack things to it. See, that's a funny use of it. You could do stuff like that. Um, I think it'd be funnier to give you a demonic hordes and blow up all your lands so that you can never play lands for the rest of the game. But Lord of the Pit killing you in a couple turns is also pretty fucking funny. Yeah, it works good with Breeding Pit. It's still like the sacking the creatures is not necessarily the roughest part. It's not good, um, but it's not the roughest thing in the world. Yeah, exactly. It is a French vanilla, right? Because like the effect is that there's no ETB, which didn't exist back then, and there's no like really. It's a flying trampler, and you got to sack a creature to it. So it's basically French vanilla because the the non-French vanilla part of it is just downside. Um, so once you jump through those hoops, you're left with a French vanilla. Still 7/7 flying trample, not the worst thing in the world by any stretch. And there's definitely some fun things you can do with it. But the card is less impressive than it looks, which is unfortunate. But it was very early in the game's design when they came up with it, so um yeah, I don't know. It's such a cool fucking card though. I like his big white shiny teeth. It's a funny card. The art's fantastic. Um but if you want to win, instead of trying to get a Lord of the Pit out, German sauerkraut. Instead of getting a Lord of the Pit out, you might want to consider maybe looking a couple cards over and just casting a fucking Mind Twist. Uh, how do you guys feel about Mind Twist? You fan? You enjoy when this card is in the card pool, or are you it also some inspired someone's call from? Yeah, yeah, absolutely it did. That's a good point. Um, early Yu-Gi-Oh, very early Yu-Gi-Oh was basically just completely um I don't want to say ripped off, but inspired by Magic the Gathering. It pretty quickly found its own way and path though. Brutal card. F this card. Yeah, yeah, Mind Twist is pretty fucked. Uh been absolutely gaped by it. Yeah. Yeah. Uh I my fiance fucking loves Mind Twist. She'll Mind Twist me for 7 at every fucking opportunity, and it's always so fucking brutal. It's like, fuck, no. Uh, I do really like this card. It's it's strong, it's brutal as fuck. It's absolutely horrible to get it cast against you. There's something about fucking casting a Mind Twist for like 5 on somebody though. Like, yeah, get fucked, nerd. Um, there's actually in certain variants of old school, there is a variant called gentleman's rules. And what gentleman rule means is that Mind Twist and Library of Alexandria are not legal if you're playing for gentleman's rules, which is really funny. Mind Twist is a pretty divisive card. You either think it's hilarious and don't mind getting wrecked by it occasionally, just so that you can wreck someone, or you do not think it's a fun and inviting play experience. And I would agree with both ends of the spectrum. But I don't mind Mind Twist. I think it can be a good time, especially with fast mana. My brother asked if I have Mind Twist in the day. Yeah, yeah. Getting Mind Twist, you want to know about the Mind Twist if it's gonna happen, and I think that's fair. Generally, like when I play, most of the time it's kitchen table, and most of the time we go over and know each other's decks pretty well before we play. Um, Not always though. The surprise Mind Twist is uh Mind Twist is brutal. They were just discard everything anyways. Yeah, that's true. My friends were not gentlemen. Hey, I mean, it's a good card, right? You're chasing that W, why wouldn't you play it? Uh the art is also really fantastic because you feel so fucking seen. Like when I get a Mind Twist cast on me for fucking 6 or 7, I'm like, this guy on this art and me, we are spirit animals. Derek. Yeah. Mind Twist is a chaotic card. Mind Twist is probably one of the most frustrating cards ever, together with Stasis. Yeah, there's definitely an argument for that. I don't know that I'd think Mind Twist is necessarily all that frustrating. It certainly can be. Um, but you get hit with it enough and you kind of just don't care anymore, though. It depends on like how you play the game, right? Like everybody has different aspects of what they find fun about the game. But playing under stacks and playing stuff around Mind Twist, I enjoy stuff like that. Uh, but it's definitely not for everyone, and I don't think you're wrong for thinking cards like this are frustrating because they, excuse me, because they absolutely can be. Great card though. It's banned in Legacy, which makes sense. Um, yeah, I guess I don't really have anything else to say about Mind Twist. It's fucking brutal. It's a great card. Anyone who's ever played with or against it knows that. It makes the discard a mortgage payment, so be it. Might be discarding 3 mortgage payments. Um, the art's fantastic. Julie Barrow did this piece, and I really like it. I think this is one of her better works. Great card. Let's move on. Oh, this is another card that's pretty interesting to talk about. Nether Shadow. Nether Shadow is a 1/1 that costs 2 black mana. It's a summon shadow or a spirit creature these days. My argument is if you don't get frustrated by Mind Twist, barely anything can frustrate you in this game. Yeah, that's true. I don't know. It's just a game, right? Like at the end of the day, they're just random cards. Like you can play another. Um, but I agree. I don't find the game all that frustrating almost ever. I think the most frustrating situation I ever had in a game was so I downloaded Arena to play some Magic because I didn't have anyone around me at the time to play with, and I was really, really itching to play some Magic. And I hadn't touched Arena in like 2 years. And I downloaded it, looked at what cards were legal and standard, and saw that it was like Monastery Swiftspear. And so I was like, oh, cool. Mono red. I love playing mono red in Arena. Everyone loves mono red in Arena. So I spent the next 20, 30 minutes like going through the cards because I had played previously, so I had a bunch of wilds and stuff. I managed to build a pretty decent mono red deck. And then I went into the queue, got my first game, played a mountain, played a monastery Swiftspear, and the other person immediately conceded. And that was probably at the end of it. I was just like, I just wanted to play some Magic. That was probably the most frustrating thing that's like ever happened to me in a game of Magic. So like take what you will about that. But yeah, Nether Shadow, the OG Dredge card. Yeah, for sure. Nether Shadow is really interesting for a couple of reasons. One, Nether Shadow and like two other cards maybe are entirely responsible for the rule that your graveyard has to be in a specific order. The barrier of entry is too damn high. Yeah, I don't like Arena. I don't like how it's all like there's a bunch of psychological triggers to get you to buy shit. Um, and a lot of people concede super quickly, which is fine, right? It's their time; they can do what they want. But like, I signed up to play a game. I don't. A lot of people, I think, just get too frustrated by things outside of their control, right? Like, isn't that kind of the point of a game? Is that shit happens and sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it doesn't. Like, there's no reason to be upset about it. Um, that might be it. Funny. Um, what was I saying about Nether Shadow? I got distracted by the comments. Uh, yeah, Nether Shadow, because of how it is worded, Nether Shadow is like pretty much directly responsible for the rule in like old school and any other format that your graveyard has to be in a specific order. That's not a rule in modern Magic because they don't print cards that care anymore. Um, and that's kind of interesting. The worst part of Arena for me is how repetitive people's deck choices are, followed by the people who spam laughing emotes. Yeah, they there's some bad sportsmanship on Arena, but what can you do? That's Magic. It's always been that way. Yeah, I love the requirement on it too. It's yes, graveyard order is so clunky. I don't mind it because it's just something to get used to. Um, but it is clunky, and I don't disagree that they got away from it. But I do think stuff like Nether Shadow does make the game more interesting. Um, this is also the first creature with haste. I think it's the only creature in like ABU. Revised we'll have to get through because I don't know what reprints they added. Um, but it's the first creature with haste, well before the haste keyword came out, which is interesting. Otherwise, it is a 1/1 for 2 black mana, and so it's not great, but it is interesting. You can mute the emotes. The matchup system seems super broken. Yeah, yeah, it is the first taste. MTGO being more chill. Yeah, that's what I remember from Magic the Gathering Online is that it's more chill. Arena does have its upsides though, right? Like it's easier to get set up in the game. It's faster. Um, and the UI is more aesthetically pleasing if you don't like MTGO kind of looks like a 90s game, right? Yeah, having concerns I will not push back on concerns about graveyard order. Like I like the concept of it, but logistically it is a pain in the ass, and it also it's very like getting issued like a game loss or screwing up the game because you mucked about with your graveyard absentmindedly is not a good thing for the game to have. Graveyard order is definitely not. It, that's one of the things that I completely agree with when they got rid of it. For one, it like never even comes up, right? Even in like old school and stuff, Nether Shadow's not all that good. Uh, Doing a graveyard deck is kind of hard unless you're playing with quite a few old bordered cards. Um, and if you are playing with those, then Nether Shadow usually isn't good enough to play. It's seen some play here and there occasionally, but the point is cards like this rarely actually come up. So at the end of the day, it's kind of like a wash. Uh, it's probably a good idea that they went away from the idea, but I do think the idea is unique. This was illustrated by Christopher Rush, one of the best artists from the early days of Magic. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but he did a lot of iconic cards like Lightning Bolt and Black Lotus, two really, really powerful iconic cards. And his Nether Shadow art is really, really good. I like it. I like the weird claw things. In pre-modern, we have Phyrexian Furnace that exiles the bottom card of Graveyard. Oh, so Graveyard Order. It's kind of funny that they didn't ban it, just so that you wouldn't have to deal with Graveyard Order. Um, yeah, yeah, that's really funny that they didn't just ban it. But like I said, Graveyard Order doesn't bother me. I think like it's difficult to get used to, but once you do, it's not so bad. Um, but it is logistically messy. I guess that's really all there is to say about Nether Shadow. The really interesting parts are the whole adding the like structure mechanic of your graveyard has to be in it the correct order, um, and it being the first haste creature, and the art being cool. But that's really all there is to say about it. So let's move on to Nedling Imp. Nettling Imp is a 1/1 for 2 and a black mana, and you can tap it to force a particular one of opponent's non-walls creatures to attack. If target creature cannot attack, it is killed at the end of turn. This ability can only be used during opponent's turn before the attack. May not be used on creatures summoned this turn. Yeah, the OG goat is right. So this is another one that you look at and you're like, well, why doesn't it have flying? It's got wings. Why doesn't it have flying? Um, yeah, this is not a good card. It's 3 mana for a 1/1 that you can use to goad their creatures, which can definitely be good and strong. You could also, if you want something like that, use Siren's Call in blue. Um, oh, hey, Diego. What's up, dude? Yeah, we did already talk about Urg Raiders. Urg Raiders is a great card. Very strong. Um, with this one, I have the chat up on the on the screen so that you guys can see it. So if you want to go back, watch, and see what everyone said about the cards after the stream gets done, the live will be up and you'll be able to see that. But welcome. Thanks for stopping by. It's good to see you. What was I saying? Oh, right. Nettling Imp. It's not too strong. It's certainly not like the worst thing you can be doing. Oh, see you, His. Thanks for the discussion, dude. I appreciate it. It's happy to have you here. We'll catch you some other time. Take it easy. Nettling Imp. It's alright. It's probably one of the weaker creatures, but you can force an opponent's creature. Like, you can put them in, rough situations. Oh, hey, bunch of people popping in. What's up, dudes? How's everyone doing? They having a good day? We're talking about black cards. We're on Nettling Imp, which kind of sucks. The OG Goad. The art was done by by Quinton Hoover, rather. Yeah. The art's good. Card's not that strong though. I don't really have anything to say about this. There's like some stupid stuff that you can do with it, but realistically, the amount of setup just kind of isn't worth it. Yeah, that's really all I have for Nettling Imp. There isn't too much to say about this one, so we'll just scoot on. To Nightmare. Nightmare is a horse, or it's a summon nightmare, or a nightmare horse. Super funny. Uh, this is a 6 mana, you 5 generic and 1 black for a star that has flying, and its power and toughness are both equal to the number of swamps its controller has in play. Quinton has always been my favorite art. See, I can see that. Quinton, I don't really like the thick lines that he does on his cards, similar to Justin Hampton, but a lot like the story of his cards is really good, and I can understand people that like him. They're all good, right? He's not one of my favorites, but he's definitely not one of my least favorite ones either. Nightmare is really iconic. This is an iconic, interesting card, and it's also really funny, right? Because you read Nightmare and then it's a black horse. Very funny, very iconic card. This is a this is a good card. It's not a great card, right? Like, it's not super powerful, but if you're like kitchen table or playing with new players, this thing is just fucking great. Nightmare was such an evergreen black finishers. New players absolutely loved it. Yeah, for sure. It's well, because not like it's easy, right? Like a card like this makes you feel like you're like everything's coming together, right? It makes you feel like you have a plan. You play swamps, you play swamps, you play swamps. It's pretty strong. It has flying, which is really good. This creature technically can be the strongest in the set. Um, and when you like play it and the number go up, you just get hit with dopamine for like just playing the game. Yeah, and it dodges terror. It dodges terror and it dodges earthquake, right? It was difficult to have good creatures back in 94. Yeah, yeah. One, there were not that many good creatures. And two, it wasn't like today where you can just go online and buy whatever you want. Even getting a 4/4 flyer for 6 was decent. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nightmare is interesting. It's definitely it's a kitchen table staple, right? Like, um, at the higher end, it does kind of peter out, but it's such a great card as far as Like if you were playing on the sidewalk, this thing was something to fear, right? Um, yeah. Yeah, I guess that's all I really have. I like Nightmare. Nightmare is a fantastic card. The art was done by Melissa A. Benson, and the art is fantastic, just like everything else about the card. Uh, the card is a pun. It's funny. It's reasonably strong, and it rewards players for having a plan, but is also simple enough that it is like understandable by new players. This is the type of card that like will help a new player get better at the game just by giving them reason to explore the complexity of mechanics in a slow and rewarding way. Um, all right. I remember a noob trying to use the dark rituals. Tell him the card he was looking for is Howl from Beyond. That's what he wanted there. Um, when you think of artists who regularly make style choices that you genuinely dislike, what are the names that come to your mind? Um, it does die Armageddon. That's a funny point. Uh, Ron Spencer making everything shiny. I could see that. I think for me, the two that come to mind mostly are Justin Hampton, just because his style is particularly cartoony and like in a way that just meshes with me weird. Not a particularly huge fan of his. And then what is it? Is Harold McNeil? Is that the guy's name? He did Sylvan Library and a few other cards, but like 90% of his work just looks like a greasy dish rag to me. I'm not particularly like I like Sylvan Library. I think that art is fine, but most of his stuff it just looks not good to me personally. So those are probably the two artists, at least from the old school artists that I don't want to say I don't like, but generally I find off-putting comparatively. Um, but I could see the thing with Ron Spencer. I like Ron Spencer's stuff. The shiny thing doesn't bother me too much. And yes, Nightmare dies to Armageddon. That's a good point to bring up. That's really funny. Uh, I think that's all I really have to say on Nightmare. Come on. Well, look at some of his work. Tell me I'm wrong. I mean, I don't know anything about how he does his art, like his styling. I couldn't tell you if it's like if he is like really fucking good at something that's really hard to do. All I know is that it looks like a greasy dish rag to me, like 90% of his art. And no problem, dark themed. My biggest thing about the art is that I like that it's different. So even if sometimes there is stuff that I don't particularly like, it looks a little weird to me. I just appreciate that it's not like how Magic is today. I don't really like that every single card has the same art style. It seems more like you're looking through a window than you're looking through old scrolls, right? Like that was the thing about Magic that I really liked in early day art is that it feels like all of this is just like wizards being like, "Oh, hey, watch out for this thing. It kind of looks like this." Whereas now it's all one contained. This is the art style. It kind of takes away some of the immersion for me personally. But anyway, Nightmare, very cool, very fun card. Like this is a popular card, and for good reason. Kind of a newbie card, but there's nothing wrong with that. The game needs cards that help people learn how to play the game and what to like look forward to and what to think about things. It's a good it's a good thing. Cards like this are great. No, it's just funny as hell. Yeah, thanks. It's just how I feel. But again, art is subjective, so don't let anyone tell you what to think when you look at art. Um, in Darkness and Enduring Renewal, which was a key piece. Oh, you played a Enduring Renewal deck? That's pretty funny. Yeah, I did a video on Enduring Renewal and what people used to say back in the day. If you haven't seen that, you should look into that because you might be a blast in the past for you. Um, I don't remember the art on Darkness. I'll have to look into that later. I can't speak on that. The Enduring Renewal art doesn't bother me too much. Um, I Flash Counter is one that is kind of meh. Yeah, Kobolds and Bombardment makes sense, right? Because you sack the Kobolds and then they go back to your hand. Um, oh, see, that's funny. I actually I like Mold Demon, and yeah, he was the I think he was in the oh, Darkness is like aliens. In fact, that was the first video I watched. Oh, cool. Cool. Yeah, so you saw that. Excellent. I like Mold Demon's art personally, but I can understand people that don't. But to me, it's whimsical. Yeah, the flying compass. Yeah, look at that. There's more Mold Demon stands than get out of here with that Mold Demon crap. Mold Demon is a fantastic piece of work. But this just goes to show, right? Art is subjective. We all see different things when we look at shit. What one person likes, one person doesn't. And so it's great that that's part of what makes um yeah, yeah, what Dark Theme just said. It's a perfect example of how wide ranging the art was allowed to be back in the day. Yeah. Yeah, you stole the words right out of my mouth. Um I really appreciate the wider range of art back in the day. But let's talk about Paralyze while we're here. Paralyze, done by Anson Maddox, which is an artist I really appreciate, and Paralyze is a very, very good card. Not the best card ever by any means, but it is a very good card. Yes, yeah, art is subjective, exactly. Like you're allowed to have your opinions and think whatever you want, but there's no reason to like fight about it. Um, for example, I like Mold Demon. Uh, but anyways, Paralyzed. Yeah. So target creature is not untapped as normal during untap phase. Creature's controller may spend 4 mana during his or her upkeep to untap it. Tap target creature when Paralyze is cast. Zapping a Mohawk Centaur. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Good art. It's also a really strong card. You put this down on turn one, and like if like fuck their hypnotic specter, right? Um, this can be difficult to deal with. It's obviously not like quite as good as Swords to Plowshare, but it's pretty comparable. I think Paralyze actually still sees quite a bit of play in old schools, and depending on the format, I would guess. But Paralyze is a fantastic card. It's kind of a tempo card. It doesn't necessarily completely deal with the problem, but it does a lot, right? Even just tapping, even if they can pay for it and you don't care, like you can use this to swing past a blocker and deal lethal damage, right? So this is pretty strong early, mid, and late game. Paralyze is kind of fantastic. It does kind of read as a card that doesn't do too much as a new player, but once you have played a little bit, you kind of understand the strength of this card. Um, yeah, yeah, this is just fantastic. It's a very good removal for the time. If you're playing in these card pools, this is something, and you're in black, this is something I would consider having. Um, yeah, you can sideboard it if they're ramping. Even if they're ramping, it's still pretty decent. If they can pay for it, like paying 4 mana for something is pretty rough. Where this card really shines though is Chantelar. The AI will pay for this constantly. Like if you slap this on a Birds of Paradise turn one, As soon as they hit to 4 mana, they will spend that 4 mana to untap that bird every fucking turn, no matter what. Uh, so if you're playing through Chandalar and you have some black, I would really recommend running Paralyzed. But it's good against normal people too, because they either have to spend the mana to get their thing back, or they're just down their thing. Um, so this can be really, really advantageous. But I guess that's really all I have to say about it. Let's talk about Pestilence. Pestilence is an interesting card. Pestilence. Another piece of art by Jesper Meerfers. Pestilence costs 2 and 2 black mana, and you can pay black mana to do 1 damage to each creature and to both players. If there are no creatures in play at the end of any turn, Pestilence must be discarded. Even if opponent uses disenchant or some, it's already yeah. That's another Um, yeah, because if they blow up your paralyze, all they've done is blow up your thing that was in your deck meant to screw with them, not to push your game plan through. So you have effectively countered some of their removal. That's a very good point. Um, yeah, Maddox's background color usage is generally really good. Is one of the things he's strongest on. Just the how the art feels. Um, Pestilence is such sick art. Yes, I agree. This is another piece of art that I really really like. It's the guy looks is a leper, I would assume, or something like that, and it's messed up in the best way. Like the closer you look at the art, the more upsetting it is. It's fantastic. It's well done, and just the colors and the flaming or the framing of the pillars, the purple blacks mixed together in the black card. It's really good with the dull, dirty yellow and bloody garment. This is another one that has good color usage. It fits with the card. I don't know. I really like this one. This card's really good. For 4 mana, you can ping stuff in black. It's pretty good, pretty interesting stuff. Um, the hardest part about Pestilence is keeping a creature up while you deal damage to everything, but it's definitely not impossible to do that. Um, I guess I don't really have anything else to say about Pestilence. Uh, well, I guess you can do funny things with well, no, we'll talk about that when we get there. Um, yeah, it's pretty good. Uh, does burn damage, which is funny. It just, I guess it wipes the floor with White Weenie, right? Like, if you drop this and they've just been playing a bunch of Savannah Lions and shit, this, they're kind of fucked. So this is a card that you might have to deal with pretty much immediately or you're screwed. Um, and if you have the mana to, like, deal with it, like, if you cast this against mono white, they can't counter it once it gets to the field. As long as you have the mana, even if they disenchant it, you can blow up all their creatures in response to that. So it's a hard card to answer for certain strategies. Um, yeah, I guess that's all I got. Pestilence is a great card. I enjoy the card. It's difficult to play with, difficult to play against, but it's fantastic. Plague Rats. You guys like some Plague Rats? Plague Rats is a creature that costs 2 and a black mana, and the power and toughness of this creature is equal to the number of Plague Rats in play. including Pestilence and Urza's armor to see if I could make it work. I could not. Yeah, that does seem like stretching it a bit. Plague Rats is really interesting. Uh, Plague Rats is like the first Magic deck anyone who was playing in '93 made ever. Uh, Plague Rats is fantastic. Plague Rats is interesting because it's very obvious by this card that there was no consideration for how many copies of a card you could have in a deck rule. Because Plague Rats actively encourages you to play as many copies of it as you can. Back to the 14th century. Yeah, Plague Rats is great in Revised 40. Revised 40 is an interesting rule set for sure. It's basically the original rules, but using revised cards since alpha cards are so way too fucking expensive. And Revised 40 does take out a lot of the busted cards, which does make the format a little bit more balanced. Um, Plague Rats is interesting. Plague Rats is a really fun idea. I love the template Plague Rat set, but I think they revisit it a little too often. Yeah, they definitely go back to this kind of thing a little bit too much. I could see that as a criticism. 40 Rats, 20 Swamps is a goated deck. Yeah, 40 Rats, 20 Swamps. Probably loses to 40 Lightning Bolt and 20 Mountains, but it is pretty interesting. Yeah, Plague Rats is great. Plague Rats is great. I don't really have too much else to say about it. It's a pretty simple card, right? It's obviously play as many Plague Rats as you possibly can. Uh, if you are gonna play Plague Rats, you should probably play it in a format that lets you play more than 4 cards. Of course, that actually appears a lot. There's a couple of um, old school variants, I guess is the word I'm looking for, that have the rule of 4 that say Plague Rats you can play as many copies of. Just because the card was obviously intended to let you play as many copies of it. Um, so there are places to play this if this is something that you want to do. Yeah, yeah, that's a deck right there. Um, yeah, so Plague Rats is pretty solid. It's a fun card. Great classic card. Rats getting better early tribal support than Merfolk. Yeah. Yeah, Merfolk was an interesting tribe. Uh Honestly, they kind of have better um support than zombies did too. Goblins you could argue were doing all right by revised. The rest of the tribes not so much. Uh the art for Plague Rats was done by Anson Maddock, and this is just another fantastic piece. This thing is fucking diseased, gross, deadly, plague filled, very, very terrifying card. uh, that's the flavor text on Old Fuddy Duddy. What the unset dinosaur with like fucking banding and all bunch of shit. Yeah, personally, I agree. 20 Black Lotuses and 20 Plague Radix. That's real magic. 100%. Good shout out. Old Fogey. That's the card. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Raise Dead. Raise Dead is a sorcery, costs a single black mana, and bring one creature from your graveyard to your hand. This is okay. They've printed this back a few times because it's okay. It's the it's the black reconstruction. But there aren't as busted creatures as there are artifacts. Yeah, elves got better over time. Elves was a slow tribe to like elves didn't really get tribal support super early on compared to the other ones. right? Like there's no card that cares about elves at all until Fallen Empires. I think there's a couple of cards in Fallen Empires that kind of care about elves, but even then those cards kind of suck and don't actually like encourage an elves tribe deck. Um yeah, fuck. I don't know. Raised Dead is okay, right? Like there's not much to say about it. It brings a creature back to your graveyard. If that's something you need, you could do that for a card and 1 mana, which is about as low of a cost as you can ask for. Um, but like, why would you play this when you could play Animate Dead, right? Why would you bring a creature back that you have to then cast again? There's like some stuff you can do with that if that's what you're going for, but overall, it's not great. Um, but it is efficient at what it does. The art was done by Jeff A. Menges, and I really like this art too. He's a very spooky skeleton kind of guy, very raised deady. I like the art. The art speaks to me, but the card is pretty simple. There's not too much to say about it. So let's talk about the probably second best black creature in the set. Royal Assassin is an interesting card. It's a 1/1 that costs 1 and 2 black mana. And you can tap to destroy any tapped creature. This is a card that is not unsimilar to Prodigal Sorcerer in cost and effect. Obviously, it's a little bit different. Um, Prodigal can ping anything it wants. Royal Assassin has to have something tapped. This is a card that, at least for me, when I first started playing, and then when I first started looking at old cards and playing with them, Royal Assassin looked kind of bad. Yeah, Icy Manipulator and Royal, you're ruining the plot. We're getting there. Yeah, that's a really, really good way to do this. Royal Assassin can be pretty brutal. You kind of don't think about it until there's one sitting on the other side of the field, and then you can no longer tap any of your fucking creatures because they're just gonna blow it up immediately. Um, it's pretty brutal. And I have relatively recently actually had the pleasure of having an Icy Manipulator and Royal Assassin on the field at the same time. Um, yeah, and you can paralyze. If you're playing with blue too, you can twiddle. There's a bunch of different ways to like actually fuck on someone. It's when I first read this card, I was like, okay, yeah, well, they have to have it tapped, so just like don't tap it, dummy. Ha ha. Now this card doesn't do anything. But even if that's the case, like that's still preventing you from using this. Um, yeah, it is a staple. Like there is an argument that this card is better than Hippie. I would say it's probably not true, and I don't know that there are many people that would make that argument, but this card is also really, really good. Royal Assassin is brutal. Very, very brutal card. I was surprised at how oh um this and Will o' the Wisp. That's interesting. Yeah, makes sense. Will o' the Wisp is really fucking annoying to deal with too. A fucking 1-drop flyer with regenerate. Absolutely annoying. Very good defensive card. Um Royal Assassin. Yeah, like it's just really fucking good, right? I don't know what else there's to say about it. It reads kind of shit if you have no experience with it, but it is definitely much better than it looks. There's a reason it appears almost as much as Hippie does. Um, I think that's really all there is to say, though. The art is good. It was done by Tom Vornerstrand. I don't know how to pronounce that. Hopefully that was okay. But I like the art. The art's pretty good. Love the Royal Assassin. Yeah, it's such a goated card. It's really frustrating to deal with when it's on the other side of the table. And it makes you relax a little bit when you have one on your side of the table. Because you know they're either gonna have to answer this or I'm gonna have an easy time on board. because they can't really commit into this too well. Royal Assassin is great. Da, 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 da. Let's keep on keeping on. Sacrifice. All of your red decks have Mountains by Tom. Yeah, yeah. His work is really good. Royal Assassin is one of the first skill check cards for new players. Yeah, agreed. Like I said, it noob trapped me when I first saw it. It definitely looks innocuous, right? It's like, okay, yeah, sure, fine. Prodigal Sorcerer is kind of like that too. Like that card really did not impress me when I first saw it. Um, and it's pretty fucking good. Obviously, it depends a bit on meta, but and also the interaction between Royal Assassin and Prodigal is pretty funny too. Because once one of them is on the field, you can't play the other, um, which is really funny. Sacrifice. So sacrifice is an interrupt, costs a black mana, and you sacrifice one of your creatures to add to your mana pool a number of black mana equal to that creature's casting cost. This was illustrated by Dan Frazier, and this art is pretty fucked up. Like if you look at it too closely, it's pretty disgusting. Not like there's no gore or anything, but it's just unsettling. Like this dude's about to get fucking split open, and he does not look excited about it, which in his defense, I would not be excited about that either. Um so sacrifice is interesting. You can combo this off of like drain life if you have a high cast creature card. There are some uses for it. It doesn't really particularly get, yeah, Frazier with the swirls. Frazier back with his backgrounds. I like his backgrounds, but he is pretty consistent in that. Sacrifice is a card that would get better as like Doomsday Piles came out, right? Like where you are using Undying, I think it is, and messing around with that. Uh, Sacrifice has some uses. Most of it is combo centric, but you can like do stuff with this, right? Like I said, you can it makes black mana, so you can use it with drain life if you get a big creature into play somehow. Um, you can do funny things. You could animate dead Colossus of Sardia, swing in with it for 9 trample damage, and then instead of untapping it for 9, sacrifice use sacrifice on it, and then hit them for another like 8 or 9 for drain life, which is not good, but it is pretty fucking funny. So there are some like, niche dumb things that you can do with a card like this, but it isn't it's a little bit too much fucking around for it to like actually be consistently good. I don't think anyone really plays this in old school. I don't know that like there might be a combo deck running around trying to make it work, but I don't think so. Be interesting to see though. Yeah, it wouldn't be bad with that's a good thing to mention up is that it wouldn't be bad with control magic because then you're using control magic and then sacrificing their thing. Um yeah. I still think you'd probably be better off with like just a straight up removal card, right? Anytime that you're like comboing 2 or more cards to do something, it starts getting less and less consistent. And that's where sacrifice sits. But you can definitely do stuff with this card. It is kind of interesting. Um, I think that's all I have to say about it. I like the art, as I said, Dan Frazier, good job. It's a little unsettling, but that's kind of what it's supposed to be. So let's move on to Scathed Zombies. Good old Scathed Zombies. Scathe Zombies is a 2/2 that costs 2 and a black. This is the Black Gray Ogre. Um, there's nothing to say about it. It is a zombie, which is kind of relevant when we get to Zombie Master. Probably the last card we'll talk about, considering they're in alphabetical order. It's still not really good. This is okay. There really isn't anything to say about it. The art's fine. I would say this is probably Jesper's weakest work, other than some stuff with like, yeah, the vanilla zombies, exactly. Um, you could argue that Word of Command is probably weaker art than this, but there's some extenuating circumstances with that piece. Whereas, yeah, this is probably just one of his weaker sets. It's okay. It's just not great. We'll just move on. Scavenging Ghoul. Scavenging Ghoul is a 2/2 for 4 mana. Oh man, now we're paying more. Technically this is now a zombie, but at the time it wasn't. So if you were playing back in the day, this would not get a bonus from the zombie master, zombie tribal guy. But nowadays it would. So that's interesting. At the end of each turn, put 1 counter on Ghoul for each other creature that was placed in the graveyard during the turn. If Ghoul takes lethal damage, you may use a counter to regenerate it. Counters remain until used. Uh, this is okay. Anytime something dies, you can regenerate this. It's not good. It's a lot of fucking around. It was illustrated by Jeff A. Menges. And sorry guys. 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay, where was I? Many cheaper generators there aren't. Yeah, kind of interesting. Just gets outclassed by all the other regenerators. Pretty much, it's pretty easily outclassed. It's not great. Um, Paying 4 mana for a 2/2 is already a rough ask. I will say I have seen this be annoying as shit in Chandelar. So if you're going to be playing with like random cards and everyone has piles that are not like well thought up or well designed, then this is actually pretty decent. Like the first time this gave me trouble, I was blown away that there was ever a situation where this was decent. Um, but like you don't see people playing it in old school because it's not mana efficient, it's not great, and it's an interesting idea, but it does get outclassed really hard by pretty much everything. Jeff A. Menges did the art. I like it. Good old Winter Ghoul. Um, it's a flavorful card. But it's bad even in alpha. And if a creature's bad in alpha, it's probably never gonna do anything. Um, yeah, yeah. I guess that's all I have to say about Scavenging Ghoul. You can pile up cheap removal easily, and Chandelar definitely helps. Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't say this is difficult by mid-game Chandelar. So my experience with Chandelar is always play on Wizard difficulty. So you start the game with a pot like the shittiest pile of cards. Um, and by the time Chandelar to me is like super difficult early game until you manage to get a consistent deck, and then it kind of stops being hard very, very fast. And then once you start getting power cards, it becomes even less not difficult. Um, but early game Scavenging Ghoul can fuck your shit up. Like you load into the game on wizard duty or difficulty, Scavenger Ghoul can be fucking scary until you get your hand on Swords to Plowshares and stuff like that. It dies to Lightning Bolt and Swords though. And yeah, the card always it feels overcosted for sure. Because it is, right? Um, but regeneration can be good. I think that's really all there is to say about it. We've probably spent more time on Scavenging Ghoul than it deserves. Uh, Sengir Vampire. Sengir Vampire is pretty cool. This is kind of just slightly worse Serra Angel, in my opinion. So it is a 4/4 flying creature that costs 3 and 2 black mana, and Sengir Vampire gets a +1/+1 counter each time a creature dies during a turn in which the vampire damaged it. Um, this card's pretty good. I don't know that I have ever actually seen its ability be relevant. In any game I've ever played, people just don't block this until they have to, and the +1/+1 just never comes up. Like, why would you like make this stronger? Like, if you're digging for removal to deal with it, you'll just chump a couple. You're either take the 4 until you can't, or by the time you're chumping, the +1/+1 doesn't actually matter. I would much rather this had vigilance or something different than what it has. But it is flavorful, right? Like the idea that they're kind of going for is like, oh, it drinks blood and 20 Black Lotuses and 20 Sengir Vampires. You won't be able to cast every Sengir Vampire though because they require five mana. So you might want to do something like 24 Black Lotus and 16 Sengirs or probably more than that. I didn't do the math, but what a deck. That's real magic. Sengir is interesting. It's perfectly acceptable. Like this is a perfectly strong card. Um, just because it's a 4/4 flyer for 5 mana. Like it's not as good as Serra Angel because Vigilance is better than whatever the hell this is. Unless this becomes relevant. But this is one of those abilities that's like, oh, this is against somebody who's new at the game, this might come up, but it's like Rampage. Yeah, Revised wasn't big on auras that could help this guy out. It is such a cool card though. Yeah, it is. It is on the same level. Like this is to me this is the echelon of like black strong creature high end, right? Um because I think I would say its power is pretty close to both Shivan Dragon and Serra Angel. Both of those are slightly better because Sarah has vigilance, which is very, very nice and comes up in a lot of situations. And Shivan obviously has, it's 5/5 instead of 4/4, and it has fire breathing, which can be really good. Um, but but Sengir isn't like weak. This is probably the fourth best creature. Fifth, maybe sixth. It's probably the sixth. Because I would say like Hypnotic Spectre and well, I guess it depends on if you're talking about just the high end. I would say this is like the fourth best high end because it's slightly weaker than Shivan and Sarah, but still pretty good. And also weaker than Mahamoti Jin as well. But it is very cool. And I would say it doesn't even trail that far behind in power wise. It's not like it's definitely not stronger, but I don't know that it's weaker enough to matter. Like, would you prefer to play Serra Angel or Sengir Vampire? Well, it's like whatever. Like, what color do I have more in my deck of? Yeah, yeah. Any creature that can deal some serious damage and does not die to bolt was pretty good back then. Yeah, I agree. Still not as cool as Nightmare. Yeah, but you can play this in more colors than you can Nightmare. Um, but Nightmare is pretty fun as well. Well, interestingly, Nightmare is easier to cast in a multicolor deck, but you want to be playing all swamps because otherwise you don't get a power up for it, which is kind of interesting. But I do think Sengir Vampire is pretty strong. I don't think it's. I do think it's one of the weaker of the big high end creatures, but it's a flying 4/4 that doesn't die to lightning bolt. Um, and it has an ability that discourages you from blocking it until you have to, which does have some value. You can play both. When you say both, do you mean both Sengir and Sarah, or do you mean both? Oh no, you did a black white. Yes, you're talking about Sarah Angel, and yeah, you could play both. 100%. Yeah, none of us were loaded up with enough dual lands to justify Nightmare over this in black. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, Nightmare, you'd have to pretty much be mono black. Um, Not that there's anything. Mono black is pretty strong. Yeah, yeah, I figured that out, dude. When you said black and white. Uh yeah, you can play both Sengir and Sarah. I agree. It's pretty strong. I do think in most situations Sarah is slightly better with the vigilance, but I do think they are both pretty fucking good. And the art is classic, right? I like this art. Anson Maddox did the art for this, and it's pretty fucking fantastic. Just a spooky fucking dude, right? Um, yeah, Sengir is a goated card. Does anyone else have anything super important they want to say about it? Something that hasn't been mentioned? Like I said, I think it's not super strong, but it's certainly not weak, and it's classic. It's I play with it a lot. Um, I really don't think there's too much more to say about it though. He's either tiny or he's inside Nicol Bolas's chest cavity. It's the guy with the knife in Sacrifice. Is it? Oh yeah, it kind of looks like it. Personally, I think um personally I think this is the same guy as what appears in uh come on. Oh, now you're gonna lose here. Uh Death Grip. I think this is the Sangir vampire's hand, right? Because same kind of skin color, same spooky shit, and it has like these veins and arteries. Uh, so that's my conspiracy theory. um, but yeah, let's move on to okay. Let's move on to Simulacrum. This is a relatively confusing card that never did. Yeah, yeah, that's why they're both illustrated by Anson Maddox. Like, I don't know if he intended for that to be the same thing or if he was just in the mood to do that style specifically at the time or however it worked out, but they do kind of look similar. Um, Simulacrum, because his artwork is fire. Yeah, good call. Uh, so Simulacrum is an instant that costs one in a black mana, and all damage done to you so far this turn is instead retroactively applied to one of your creatures in play. Even if there's more than enough damage to kill the creature, you don't suffer any of it. Further damage this turn is treated normally. Yeah, so this is a 2 mana instant, and You gain, the Oracle text has changed this a little bit. You gain life equal to the damage dealt to you this turn. Simulacrum deals damage to target creature you control equal to the damage dealt to you this turn. Simulacrum on your Will-o'-the-Wisp, classic black control. Simulacrum takes away your suffering. Yeah, exactly. If you're gonna get like fucking fireballed for a huge amount of damage, Simulacrum can come in handy. It's not a particularly good card by like today's modern standards. It's one of those cards that reads like, oh man, this is really useful. But in my personal experience, it doesn't come up as often as you would think. Although Simulacrum Will-o'-the-Wisp is pretty funny. And yeah, you can do this after blockers. There's definitely use cases for it. The Will-o'-the-Wisp strategy is probably the best case of this. And it is not mana intensive, right? But yeah. So it can be annoying, but it did not stand the test of time. Like you don't see people play this in Commander or anything like that. It's interesting in concept. I assume it was better in old rules when you didn't immediately die when you had 0 life, but had time to play something like this. Yeah, yeah, that's a good point to bring up, right? Because that also is what axed Mirror Universe from being playable and good. Is if this you can't with this card back in the day, you could go all the way to 0 or even negative and then play this to like get out of that. It probably was better than that, but I think it has a very good niche purpose, specifically if you're trying to do something like that. Oh, hey, Carlos. Welcome. Good to have you pop in. We're talking about Simulacrum, which is an interesting but not particularly strong card that still has some niche uses. I really like the art though, but I'm a big Mark Poole fan. I'm a big Mark Poole fan. Uh, Anyone else have anything interesting to say about Simulacrum? I gotta say the Will-o'-Wisp doing this in Will-o'-Wisp in a black control deck is pretty funny. That's a good shout out. Carlos Square. Funny stuff, guys. Funny stuff. All right. There's not much more to say about Simulacrum. So let's head on to Sorceress Queen. Sorceress Queen is a pretty sweet fucking card. So this is a 1/1 creature that costs 1 and 2 black. And you can tap it to make another creature 0/2 until end of turn. Treat this exactly as if the number in the lower right of the target card were 0/2. All special characteristics and enchantments on the creature are unaffected. That's a I love how they felt a need to like write out rulings on the card text back in the day to make sure you understood. This card is pretty fucking good. It's not quite as good as stuff like Royal Assassin in regards that like that can just blow stuff up. Uh, but this can make it so that you can never block anything. This card can make it so that your biggest thing is just fucked constantly. This thing is super brutal to deal with, especially if you're both playing with limited collections and don't necessarily have all the removal. This can just be like game fucking over. Like this gets dropped and you're just like, what the fuck do I do? Uh, I love everything about this. The artwork is intense. The artwork is fantastic. Kaja Folio is probably my favorite artist. I really like pretty much everything she does is a banger, and this one is fantastic. Kaja Folio is another great artist. It's one of those you either like or dislike. Yeah, I could see that. She not quite as extremely as her husband Phil Foglio, but they both have a kind of cartoonishy, whimsical style, right? You either like it or you don't. But I do. I think Kaja is I don't want to necessarily say better, but I like her artwork a little bit better than Phil's. Phil's is constantly fucking hilarious though. Like every piece he does is kind of a shit post, and I appreciate that. Uh, but Kaja did Scheherazade, and that's one of my favorite pieces of art. This is another really good piece of art. But yeah, Sorcerer's Queen. This is a strong card. It's not the best card, but it is another black card that is just brutal to deal with if you don't have an out for this. Ba, 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 ba. Yeah. Yeah, the art does totally fuck. Um, I think that's all there is to say about it. Does anyone have any like cheeky fucking combos with Sorcerer's Queen or anything? Um, Home run, yeah. It's mostly just like denial, right? Because if you have a like again, yeah, it is a fantastic contrast. Nobody had play sets of anything, so it was good. Yeah, yeah, it's especially good with this disheveled card pools where people are just scraping together to get enough cards to play. Protect. Yeah, that is a good use of it. You can use it against your Tim or use it to protect stuff from Tim. That's that's very fucking funny. That's a good use of it. Yeah, and Queen does got muscles and Black Knight block. Yeah, yeah, it's a fantastic card. She definitely does not look like someone you would want to piss off, right? She does not seem like the type that you should be running your mouth against. And she looks like she trains in fucking 10 times gravity, right? Fucking some Dragon Ball Z shit. Uh let's talk about Terror. Terror is an interesting card. Terror is an instant that costs one in a black mana and bury target creature or destroy target non-artifact, non-black creature. It can't be regenerated. This cannot target black creatures or artifact creatures. Terror is probably the worst of the single target removal creature spells in ABU and revised. Lightning Bolt is more efficient and versatile. Swords to Plowshare is just way better. Uh, Paralyze is arguably better because I think because Paralyze you can target black and artifact creatures with. Um, but Terror is still good, right? Like, it's the least efficient of the most efficient removal Magic has ever printed. So, Terror is still pretty solid. 2 mana to destroy anything that isn't a black or artifact creature is pretty good. Just hope that they don't have a black or artifact creature. Because if they do, it's not great. And yes, thematically, it's fantastic. The theme of it makes sense too, right? Like it to me, it makes sense why it can't target black or artifact creatures. It's riffing off of Fear, which is a card we talked about earlier that kind of doesn't do the same thing, but it again doesn't affect black or artifact creatures. It did, yeah, yeah. It's at the standard of a 2 mana black removal spell that has some limitations at instant speed. Back then, Bury had the only meaning it ever had. Buried was around from like revised or Legends, I think. Legends revised in that area, and then they got rid of it pretty quickly. But what buried means is destroy, and it can't be regenerated. Um, oh yeah. People in the comments are beating me to it. This art fucked me up as a kid. This art is fucking like terrifying. Like no shade, I completely agreed. This art fucked me up the first time I saw it. No, Bury is not exile. So what you're thinking of is remove from game. Exile was a term that didn't come in until later in the game. Before exile, exile was always in the game mechanically. It was called remove from the game. Man, my chatters keep getting to it before I can. All right, you guys explain it. This delay is rough. Terror is fantastic. The art is terrifying in such a cool way. It was illustrated by Ron Spencer. Um, it's such a good card. Um, but I guess at the end of the day, it is just simple removal, right? There isn't too much else to say about it. So, yeah, he looks terrified, right? He definitely looks freaked out. Um, but yeah, it's efficient removal. It's a good card. Like it's a fantastic card. It's the best in class for what it does if you are not in white or red. And arguably, well, Swords of Plowshare is just kind of, I don't want to say strictly better, but is generally in most situations just way better. Whereas Lightning Bolt only hits things with up to 3 power. So there's a world where Terror is more useful, and there's a world where Lightning Bolt is more useful. So Terror is pretty good. It's like Frank's. Oh, funny stuff. Unholy Strength is interesting. This is the last version of this card. Funny stuff. Unholy Strength. So this is the last version of Unholy Strength that got to keep the pentagram in the background. This got wiped out in the, I think they removed it in the Summer Magic Edition. It definitely got removed in 4th edition. Unholy Strength is an enchant creature that costs a single black mana, and target creature gains +2/+1. Very noob friendly card, new player friendly. Yeah, quite controversial indeed. Uh, Satanic Panic, spooky stuff. Is the depictions of satanic imagery is the problems with society. 100%, maybe, depending on who you ask. The pentagram that made us unholy. Yeah. Yeah, parents always just want to blame something they don't understand for the behavior of their teenagers, right? Yeah, Satanic Panic was a huge thing back in the day. But it's just like anything, right? Like they are losing control of their children and they feel the need to lash out, and so they lash out at the things that those kids enjoy. And this has the ready-made excuse. There's like, oh my God, it's Satanism. Our poor children and their immortal souls. I'm not just a bitch. This is a culture thing. It's important. Um, but yeah, Satanic Panic, pretty stupid concept in my opinion, but a lot of people were fucking mad about shit like this. Uh, the card itself though is pretty good. It's a kind of a newer player friendly card in that it encourages, it encourages building something up. Yeah, exactly. It's always easier to blame a higher evil, right? Uh, like if you're a fan of South Park, blame Canada, right? Anything but us. It's always it's something's fault, as long as it's not mine. Um, but as far as a card goes, Unholy Strength is pretty cool. It's slightly better than Holy Strength in most situations, just because power is generally better than toughness. Anyone else see the fucked up circle? Or is it just me? Your best was suspended from school for this card. Sting Unholy. Dark Root 4/4 in the first turn. Yeah, it's pretty powerful. The fucked up circle, or just you? You mean the pentagram in the back? Your bestie was suspended from school for this card. That's crazy. Suspended from school for a, yeah, that's the answer, right? We don't like his behavior. Better fuck with his education. That'll fucking solve the problem. Uh, Unholy Strength is pretty good. Fucked up as in more oval than circular. Yeah, it's definitely not 100% perfect. Douglas Schuler did have his problems with perspective. Yeah, it makes sense. Pokemon schools got axed at my school when I was playing. I was partly responsible for that. Some older kid took my Pokemon cards and a couple of my friends beat him up, and then we got sent to the office, and then Pokemon cards got banned. But at least that was because of like that was more reasonable because we were like physically brawling over it. Um, but yeah, perspective is a little off on the art. It's crazy that this caused any sort of controversy. It could be a burrito. It might be a burrito. We don't know, right? Maybe behind him it just says "I love Jesus." Who's to say? Um, but the card is interesting. Full contact Magic together. Probably because he was out of time and doing this one and did it quick. Yeah, this one looks like one that he put together pretty quickly. It doesn't matter either way though, right? Like art can be flawed and still be interesting and good. Um, this one was never one of my favorite pieces personally, because I do think it looks rushed and not particularly great. But also, who gives a shit, right? Um, but yeah, I guess there's more interesting talking about the Satanic Panic back in the day around this card. The card's okay though, right? Like, it's fine. Funny with like Ornithopter and stuff. This card art would have never gotten any real attention if it wouldn't be for those parents. It's really not. No, it really isn't interesting. It's one, it's not only not interesting, but it's also probably like his least impressive work. Like Douglas Schuler is a pretty great artist, but this piece is not good. Um I hate that they ban a game that promotes strategic thinking and planning. Yeah, well, I mean, they did the same thing with D&D, right? Like dear God, the kids are fucking sitting around in the basement instead of going out drinking, and they're doing fucking math down there. And that one had a wizard hat. This is an affront to God. He, yeah, it's crazy the stuff that they fucking get rid of or pitch. Yeah, yeah, you could make that claim for sure. The Kiss comparison is a good comparison. That's 100%. Kiss always was confusing to me as someone who like was born in 90 and grew up, so like I was aware of Kiss, but by the time I was able to like listen to their music, I'm like, this is just the most generic rock music of like all time. And I did not understand. Also, because like I knew what like black metal was, and I was like, oh, okay, so they dress up like black metal musicians, and then they play like just the most fucking generic shit. Cast in level 4 exorcism in the basement and shit. You take off your wizard robe and do you have anything on underneath it or all natural for the so that the spell flows better? Uh, um, My science teacher literally taught us how to play as part of a tutoring program for kids failing. We started to pass, then they banned cards on campus. Yeah, of course they did. It's always easy go for the easy target. Most people don't care about critical thinking. Ain't that the fucking sad truth? RDM Josh was an absolute psychopath and we turned out mostly decent. Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, right? Like just because you like explore some pretty weird topics when you're like playing pretend doesn't mean that you're going to like, right? Like not everyone that plays GTA 5 goes out and steals a car. In fact, most of those people are like, okay, yeah, I've gotten some experience with this where nobody got hurt. That's okay. I don't need to worry about this anymore. I think letting people like explore that stuff in fiction where nobody gets hurt is more healthy. Obviously, like I might be wrong on that. I'm no fucking scientist or social worker, but um you got to keep it light for the mana regeneration. Good call. Good call. Yeah, Unholy Strength. Interesting card. Well, not really. It's just a halfway decent pump spell. The interesting conversation around it is Satanic Panic and all the bullshit people went along through with that, which still happens today with other stuff. It's always just the older generation not understanding kids and freaking out about things they don't understand. But there really isn't too much to say about Unholy Strength, so we might as well scoot on down. Because the art is okay. It's definitely Douglas Schuler's worst piece, in my opinion. And this is a piece that I like a lot better. So this is Wall of Bone. Wall of Bone is a wall, which means it can't attack. Now it has Defender, but back in the day, walls just couldn't attack. It is a 1/4 that costs 2 and a black mana, and you can pay black to regenerate. Yeah, video games. I mean, video games were a target back then too. Not quite as bad as Magic and Pokemon and stuff like that, but it's always the thing. Like it's always the shiny kid thing that kids like that fucking scares those people. Um, and video games definitely get a lot of slack for it, which is interesting. Wall of Bones, surprisingly pretty okay card. Like it's not great. It's not gonna help you win the game. Um, but it regenerates and it walls anything because it regenerates, right? Right? Like as long as it's not a flyer, this walls it. Um, Almost as annoying as Will o' the Wisp, except this doesn't fly and doesn't come down on turn one without a heavy mana investment. Um, my favorite part about Wall of Bone though is the art. The art is so fucking cool on this card. Yeah, Deg. Yeah, you got it. The art. Yeah, it's another good simulacrum target. That's a good point to bring up. Um, the art is just so unsettling on this in such a cool fucking way. It's so cool. Um, yeah, I like the card. It's not particularly strong by any means, but it's definitely not terrible. It's better than you would think, right? Because regeneration kind of doesn't read as strong as it can end up being. It can be really fucking annoying in the right circumstances. And the same goes for walls, right? I'm not a huge fan of walls in Magic the Gathering. They're kind of interesting. Um, Not particularly a fan of them. This has to be several armies worth of bones, and we only see a glimpse of. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, if you like when you're looking at the art and you like look at the 20 Dark Rituals, 10 Wall of Bones, and 10 Plague Rats, that is an unbeatable deck. That you have solved Magic the Gathering. But no, going back to like the logistics of how to like stack a wall made of bones in this manner, the absurd amounts, absurd amounts of bodies are going into this wall. It's terrifying stuff if you think about it. Very, very, very high fantasy, cool. Very, very black from yeah. Yeah, it's just really fucking cool. It's a fun card, right, guys? I guess there really isn't too much to say about it though, right? It's just a regenerating wall. Warp Artifact. Warp Artifact costs 2 black mana, and it does 1 damage to target artifact's controller during his or her upkeep. Uh, this is fine. It's kind of niche because you're to like do damage with it. Your opponent, well, pales against his will. Yeah, for sure. Skulls for the skull throw. Blood for the blood god. Uh, Warp Artifact. It's kind of niche, right? Because your opponent needs to be playing in playing an artifact for this to do anything. Um, and then it's just two mana to like deal a damage to them every upkeep. This can be annoying to deal with, and like for Blackburn, it's kind of okay. Uh, it's not really good as a sideboard card because it doesn't like deal with anything that you have to deal with. It just like it's just a way to like enact your win con. Um, I guess this is maybe funny with like pestilence and other stuff, but it's not particularly good. It's not the worst thing, but yeah. Um the art's interesting. It was done by Amy Weber, and this is likely another piece that got thrown together pretty quickly. Cool in a battle box. Yeah, for sure. Like cards of this level of niche do really well in a battle box because you design this around it, right? Um so for sure. I agree with that. But it's not something you would probably want to put in your I'm gonna go play random piles of cards with other people deck. I don't think it would generally do pretty well, but it is interesting. It's certainly not like the worst card ever, right? It is kind of a one-sided bronze tablet or copper tablet. One-sided copper tablet, which is kind of interesting. Not really too much else to say about it though. So let's talk about weakness. Let's see quick. Paint me 32 pictures. Yeah, paint too because they didn't like slap it on a chromatic lantern. For sure. You can slap it on whatever. They just have to have that thing for it to be worth it. Weakness. Weakness is pretty interesting. Copper Tablet is a great card. Yeah. Yeah. Could be mean if you had 2 to 3 of them. It could definitely be brutal, but again, like if they're not running any artifacts, it doesn't do anything. Um yeah, yeah, exactly. Um Copper Tablet. Yeah, Copper Tablet is a great card. We'll talk about that more when we get to the artifacts, which probably won't be today. Um, but we will get there eventually. Weakness. Weakness is a pretty sweet card. For 1 black mana, you get an enchant creature, and target creature loses -2/-1. So this is obviously especially great if oh, hey, Crawfish Cigarette. I like your username. That's really fucking funny. Um, Weakness is especially good if you can like blow up a 1/1, right? Um, yeah, was great back in the day. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying the stream. Yeah, 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 kinda. Um, yeah, let's get that out of the way. Weakness is a great card. Living Artifact in Ivory Towers. It was a slow but steady. Yeah, that sounds like a great time. Uh, Copper Tablet with Living Artifact and Ivory Towers. That's a brutal fucking game. That is a brutal game. Anyways, weakness is actually genuinely pretty useful. It's best as a removal spell, like against a 1/1 creature um like Royal Assassin or Prodigal Sorcerer. Weakness for 1 mana deals with that problem. But even on something like it Ironically enough, it's pretty okay on like Hypnotic Spectre 2 because it takes away 2 power, so they become a 0/1. And the way their ability is worded is they deal damage and then discard a card. So if they're never dealing damage, they don't. So you basically just turned it into a Birds of Paradise that doesn't tap for mana. Weakness is pretty good. It's not the best of the single mana removal spells. Like Paralyze is probably better more times. Swords to Plowshare is definitely better. But weakness does get around stuff like indestructible and stuff. So there is definitely use cases for weakness. It's a really solid card that doesn't look like much. The art's pretty fantastic too. Douglas Schuler drew this, and it's better than Unholy Strength for sure. Anyone got anything to say about weakness? I think it's a great card. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Will o' the Wisp. Good shout out. It also fucks with Will o' the Wisp, which is what we're talking about next. Weakness also puts down a Will of the Wisp, which is good because Will of the Wisp is one of the most annoying fucking creatures to ever exist in all time. It fucking down on turn one, it fucking flies, it regenerates, it just this thing is so fucking annoying to deal with. It's gonna chump block you for fucking days, and there's nothing you can do about it. Um, and it's not it's also annoying because like if they turn one this and you're sitting there looking at your lightning bolt, like yeah, do I kill this right now? Do I bolt the fucking Will-O-Wisp? Because like if you don't kill it before they untap, it's never fucking dying. But like, do you really want to put the resources into a fucking 0/1 flyer that does nothing? Will o' the Wisp is really frustrating in my opinion. I think it's a great card. Like I will definitely play this card and play against it. It is such a funny card. Like that's part of what made the fact that it's so fucking annoying is part of what makes it the funniest thing in the world to me. Um, it's it's so frustrating. I always do like bolt it or fucking weakness it, get it out of the way now before it becomes a problem. That's probably smart. It still feels bad. Like the card kind of looks like it's shit, right? Like it's not shit, but if you're new to the game, a card like this is kind of hard to understand. It's got flying, it's a 0/1, it costs 1 mana, it regenerates, but it doesn't do anything. Yeah, the art is fantastic. Jesper Meerfers did this piece, and it's super good. Just cast a Terror. Well, Terror doesn't do anything because it's a black creature, so Terror can't do anything about this. Swords of Plowshare can take care of it, but like, are you really using one of your Swords of Plowshares on a Will-O-Wisp? That this is also thematically cool. You can It's black. You can't. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. You can't Terror this. You can Lightning Bolt it. You can Swords of Plowshare it. You can Weakness it. You can Paralyze it, which is kind of funny. Um, Terror does nothing. Um, Terror and even if you could terroring using Terror or Lightning Bolt on this if they have a mana open just means that it didn't work. Will o' the Wisp is surprisingly powerful for what looks like a non. My bad, I'm tired. Yeah, it's okay. Like we all make mistakes. Remembering all these cards is hard. There's nothing wrong with making a mistake on shit like that. It's totally cool. But yeah, you do not want to use your Terror on Will o' the Wisp. It's not gonna go well for you. Uh, but yeah, Will o' the Wisp is really interesting and really fun card. You're it in that Terror. Yeah, boom, you got him that way. Hell yeah. That's a gamer strat right there. Gang, gang, dude. Fearless. Now you're what? White Will-O-Wisp. Terror. Magic is a silly game. Um, we talked about the art already, right? The art's fantastic. It's done by Jesper Meerfers. The detailing on the trees and shit is super cool. It's in a swamp. Will-o-wisps are just floating lights, and they're done well. You can even see the reflections in the pool. The art's great on this. Super fantastic. This is a very kind of iconic card, but there really isn't too much to say about it. So, I suppose let us move on to the last of our black cards. So we have Zombie Master. Zombie Master is a 2/3 that costs 1 and 2 black mana. All zombies in play gain Swamp Walk, and black regenerates for as long as this card remains in play. Fancy stuff. It's important to note that Summon Lord is not a zombie, so it does not gain Swamp Walk or regenerate, which is unfortunate. They were against the Lord cards giving themselves the bonus. Which I guess I understand, but for this one, I don't know. I guess would a 2/3 regenerate and Swamp Walk for 3 mana be too good? It might be. I love the art for Will-o-wisp because it really evokes the story of the legend and the flavor of Texas School. Yeah, for sure. Will-o-wisp, on top of being an annoying as fucking really playable card, depending on what you're doing, is also like really flavorfully cool in pretty much every aspect. It's very awesome. Zombie Master kind of bad, right? It's okay. Give Regenerate is really good, and Swamp Walk can be good, right? Like if you play this with Evil Presence and the zombies, and it might go okay. It might go your way, but generally the lords are not great if the cards around them are not great. And at this point in the game, none of the typal synergies are really that good. Um, the art's pretty sweet though. It's done by Jeff A. Menges. And one thing I really, really like about Jeff's work specifically is when he does these things that are like in the forest or something like that, the sunset or sunrise, whatever it is going on, is always just fucking peak in his cards. Like, it's not the point of the card at all. The like obviously the focus is the zombie master right here in front, but just in the background is that creeping subtle change of the sunset in the background, and I think that just adds so fucking much to his art. Um, but yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about it. Um, Zombie Masters. Anyone anyone have any opinion on anything we've talked about? This is the last of the black cards, so after we finish up this discussion, I'm gonna close down stream probably for an hour, maybe a half hour. Get something to eat. Um, go to the bathroom, all that stuff. And then I'm gonna pop in live again, and we're gonna talk about the red cards next, which will be really exciting. I see they changed it so it's a zombie at least. Yeah, they did. But if you look at the Oracle text, they changed it so it says other zombies have regenerate this permanent. At least if you put 2 of them out, they give each other something. Goblin was the best in revised because it had better cards. Yeah, for sure. The first rare I snagged. Huh, neato. Like as a rare, it's not the worst. It has been great. Yeah. Thank you guys for coming in. This is a lot more fun going through cards and having people to bounce ideas off of and talk about. Like I said, back half hour to an hour, probably closer to an hour. So if you guys are in the mood to chat more, super cool. But that's it for the black cards. The black cards are revised, are very good. They're not quite as strong as the blue cards because the blue cards are busted, but the black cards are pretty fucking good. Contract from Below, strongest card in the game. Demonic Ritual, super fucking good. Dark Ritual, super fucking good. Did I say Demonic Ritual? I meant Demonic Tutor. There's some really powerful cards in black. This was fun. Hope you guys enjoy it. I will catch you guys in like an hour or so. So hopefully you all have a magical day, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one. But if not, thank you for stopping by and chatting. Means a lot. Well, you have a good night, man. Thanks for stopping by. The chat will be up on the next one, so it'll be a shame you won't be here, but you'll be able to at least listen if you